RantCast. Hello, welcome to the RantCast. It's Thursday night. This is Kurgan. Don't have Strange Bus with me tonight, but I do have a special guest, and he's been waiting patiently, pacing back and forth, doing the little shadowboxing stuff. It's Karningul. Welcome back, frequent
Howdy.
ranter Karningul, with some strong opinions, I hope, tonight about what we're going to talk about.
Oh, I got opinions, all right, and you're going to hear about them.
Yeah, they're all wrong, unfortunately, but he is going to express them. Or I might be wrong. Hey, who knows, right? That's what it's about. Well, anyway, so we are going to talk. Let's get rid of our screens here. Shout out to Karl Casey at White Bat Audio. If you're watching us live on Twitch, thanks for tuning in live. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, thanks for supporting us. We appreciate it. Certainly, you can tune in. We haven't quite got to the stage yet where we're doing a free live call-in show, but we're working towards it. So let me just douse the flames here. More flames with a clever title, as I often do. It's OGRE, Anakin. I have the high ground. Episode 21. Hopefully, we'll get to some Star Wars and Star Trek. We had a pretty animated discussion on the HeroQuest fans Discord. I was quite impressed. I don't mean to get off topic, but I get off topic all the time. You guys know me. That's just how
I need to.
how
That reminds me of a video that I need to send you.
Oh, yeah.
That you should watch when this is over.
Okay. Yeah, you can send it to me anytime.
Yeah.
But so topic-wise, we've got the big announcement. And I just want to say, for anybody, I'm just going to say this one time, because I don't know if people pay attention. You people out there that, claim to be our fans and everything. Amalgamash. Okay, let me just talk about this guy. I got to get a few things off my chest about this guy, okay? He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a new one called AshQuest. He's got a lot of supporters out there. He likes to talk about games. He's a good guy. I think you should support him. I like him a lot. I just pretend to be, jealous of him and a rival, and we've got this, back and forth, but nothing but respect. Anyway, he did beat me to the punch with a video. So within our own ranks, we had, I talked to him. It's funny how people just assume things are happening that aren't. But yeah, Wordicon, Steve RS, 2000, Luca Rocks. There was several people that jumped on this all at once. There was this update from this UK website. That was the visual I was going to pull up. It's from FireStormGame. Let me get the link here. About Against the OGRE HORDE coming back. We knew it was coming back. We've kind of known for a really long time. It's just that having more and more tangible evidence that it's really happening is what we're getting. So that's good to have. But anyway, there was this UK website, firestormgames.co.uk, and it has a listing for HeroQuest OGRE HORDE Quest Pack, 34.84 pounds, which is a discount, and then it's March 31st, 2024. So there you go. Before this, all we knew was 2024. People were guessing Q1. But anyway, it's all over the internet now. And yeah, when he posted that, I was like, oh man. But I feel like there was another time where I beat him. I put up a video, just the instant I found out about it. It was like, I beat him. So, but anyway, the point is the community gets it. It gets around. I like the fact that the HeroQuest fans community, when something happens, doesn't matter where it was originally posted, it eventually gets around to us. And if we don't see it somewhere, we're going to put it where it needs to go. So it's all good. Yeah, what did you think, Karningul, about the reveal? What was your reaction?
I mean, I guess I wasn't really surprised. We'd had that earlier leak that, someone had reported of a store that had, I guess, given them a look they probably shouldn't have given at, kind of what the distributorship information had already told them was on the way. I think that was when we first learned about the monk, well before. And at the time, I was a little skeptical that it was real, but then it
Oh,
turned out that the monk thing that the person claimed the store had said that they would be receiving turned out to totally be a real product. So
yeah. So I mean, think about it though. Take the devil's advocate position. Um, March 31st. What happens on April 1st?
April Fools. Yeah,
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 yeah. So, I mean, maybe it's an April Fool's joke. But the problem with that theory is it's October 19th when we're finding out about this. And why would a
yeah.
store put up an April Fool's joke that far in advance? For what? For what reason? Just to troll some
Yeah.
people in the UK about this? Hey, this thing that you think is coming out, we're going to keep this up for, months and months. And then, haha,
I
just
mean,
kidding, we fooled you.
but also, I mean, how accurate can you even realistically expect a projected release date for an officially unannounced product to be? Like, I wouldn't
Yeah.
assume that March 31st is a firm date. Like,
Yeah.
that's has to be subject to change. What if
Hmm.
Avalon Hill ends up knocking the release date back by a month or something, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
the the vendors don't have control over that. They're just, I mean, honestly, I'm a little surprised they went public with that so soon, but
Hmm. Well, my take on that is this: look at the track record. So they said Path of the Wandering Monk, January 1st. What's the actual date? January 15th. Not too far off. And yes, this is farther chronologically than January 1st, but it's probably within the ballpark, I would say. So maybe a little bit in March, maybe a little bit in April. But unless something significant happens, this is probably pretty accurate. Hey, Strange
yeah,
Bus, he's here.
yeah, it could be.
All right, excellent. The cast is on. Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm missing this. We haven't talked about it yet. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're having a great night. And Storm and Wolf is here. Evening, lads, he says. Oh yeah, I don't have the fancy text on screen thing going for the RantCast. Let me fix that. Yeah, so I think based on what we've seen so far, it's probably pretty accurate. I don't think this website is trolling us. I don't think Hasbro is trolling their distributors or um,
Right.
retailers. I don't think the store operators are working together. Arizona and California. I actually called them. I forget whose suggestion it was. I'm sorry. Somebody suggested it. One of our members said, "Oh, you should just call them again and see what they say." They didn't have any new information, but they were sticking to the story. I mean, they didn't. What are you talking about, Ogre Horde? I never said that. I mean, it wasn't anything like that. Like some gotcha reporter. You're like, "Ha ha, gotcha." And no, just like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we still think it's coming out that year, and we'll just let you know when the pre-order comes through." Hey, Covert Nerd podcast, everybody. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I was trying to get that text here. I'm just gonna switch over to HeroQuest for a second. We're not doing HeroQuest tonight as a game. We're just talking, but I don't know how else to do this. Yeah, we got some visual aids tonight.
I mean, there's some ogres there.
Yeah, definitely some ogres.
I'm gonna. I don't know if it's actually all that likely that they're gonna put in a reference to this joke or not, but I definitely will be a little disappointed if there isn't a brand new artifact in the Avalon Hill version of Ogre Horde called Ogre Slaying Knife.
Oh, for the D&D joke, the Dead
Yeah.
Wives Watchtower. Huh. Yeah,
The one
okay,
that's +9 versus ogres.
that's right. Okay, well, the on-screen text thing is not working. See, this is what happens when Strange Bus doesn't host. He's got all the fancy setup. It's never ogre, guys. It's never ogre. Okay, so this is all we know. Nothing else. So we can end the stream now. This is it. We don't have anything about, the actual contents of the box. The rest of it is all speculation. We're all just going to make our predictions. I watched Amalgamash's Ash Quest video on YouTube. He made some speculation. He thinks it's going to be one of the smaller boxes. That was his prediction. And my comment on that, I mean, we could talk about it. Just a little thing. I mean, it doesn't matter because they could give us a huge box with hardly anything in it. They can give us a small box, pack it with stuff. But you think if the price point, I mean, disregarding the discount here, I mean, we heard originally from the store leak was that it'll be a bigger box. How much bigger? I don't know. But so far they have two expansion sizes that they've given us: the Keller's Keep Return of the Witch Lord size, and then the Mage of the Mirror, like the bigger size box. And I'm leaning towards that. I mean, yeah, it could be a completely custom size, but I think the main thing is, so there's this tile, and I can show you what it looks like here using Yield In as a reference. Let's go here. Just gotta get it.
Talking about the cave entrance tile.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the cave
Yeah.
entrance or the Pit of Chaos, which they would probably change to Pit of Dread, but same idea. Okay, let's get.
Pit of you got to be dumb to run in there.
Yeah. Okay. So this huge tile, check that out. So we have to account for this, and there's different ways they
Yep.
could overcome this. So it's 7 by 8 squares, which is not unheard of.
Yeah, it covers the central room and the hallways around it, as I recall.
Yeah.
Like that's how big that tile is.
Yeah. So what they could do. So I was just looking at what it would look like here, and so all right. So we've got 6 squares here. This is the Joe Manganiello one. 6, 7. So that's what 7 squares looks like in the new size. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So like cut it off like right here. And this is the Keller's Keep box. So you can see it's almost the exact same size as the box on one side.
There's no room for it to really have
I mean, it would
the
like,
excess around it to punch it out of.
or you could just
It
like have
could,
just a little, yeah. But I mean, it's like, yeah, and then you're putting it in the box, and it's like it might bend and gouge it in there. So
or
we
unless
could
it
make it,
came pre-punched, like it's just one
yeah,
piece that has a
just take
special
it right out.
slot in the candy tray to fit by
Yeah,
itself.
exactly. They could do that. They could do that with. I mean, they've got Adam Glick there, and he could figure it out. I bet. Put small things into big boxes, fit it exactly right. So they could do that, or they could just use this size, and you'd have plenty of room. You know.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I think it's more likely to be a larger box than
Well,
the small box size, but
Hasbro has billions of dollars. They could just say, okay, fine, you're gonna have it's gonna be like a half an inch bigger, and you can have it.
yeah,
But
true.
whatever. There's a couple things. The other thing they could do is they could say it's take a page out of Advanced HeroQuest and say like it's a puzzle piece, like it just comes apart and the two pieces punch into one single. They could do that. They could have one that bends, but then you've got the problem of it keeps bending and bending, and
Yeah,
maybe damage it if it's not very thick. The problem with the old tile is warping, but people were saying, well, it's so thick. This new board is so thick that it's probably not going to warp very much if you store it in the
yeah,
box. But anyway, yeah, if you look at the amount of room that's in these things,
it's not a lot.
no, it's not. But you can play with a candy tray. So you'd have your, booklet. This is,
Even a,
two
I mean, even
layers.
aside from that tile, I feel like there was a pretty substantial amount of
Yeah.
tiles in Ogre Horde.
That's what the Mage of the Mirror Ogre looks like. And I think
I mean,
Amalgamash is right. I mean, if you probably have this guy's probably in there, and then you've got like 3 other designs. I mean, unless
yeah,
they decide to go completely off the wall. People were saying, hey, the Ogre Chieftain, instead of just being like a copy of the other ogres, he should be like a big guy, like the Frozen Horror. But I mean, you could put, a bunch of those in there, and of course, these candy trays can of course be changed to whatever size they think they need. But as you can see, you can fit quite a bit in there, just like when we were looking at Spirit Queen's Torment and
yeah.
Prophecy of Telor. So
I
like
mean,
the
it might need to be a little shallower
maybe.
to fit the sheer amount. That was what I was about to say, is that Ogre Horde had more tiles, I think, overall than Like the punch-out sheets were more substantial than Keller's Keep and Witchlord.
Now, I just want to say something. This is spray painted. This is
Yeah.
not what the original looked like. This was just gray, and this is not black. This is actually dark blue. For people that were wondering, the Mage of the Mirror 1992 ogres were like a light blue, like a really light blue, like kind of a cornflower blue. This is not the exact one. I didn't grab it for the video, but it was more like that difference in color. This is a little bit darker than the actual one. This is a 3D print,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
this is what it would look like. So camera doesn't do it justice, but it's just like kind of a midnight blue, similar to the Wizards of Morcar. And then you had these red ogre warriors. So this is the equivalent of this, but will they use red? Who knows? It'd be really
I,
boring if they just made these guys blue and then these guys gray, but they could do that.
so far, they haven't used red for anything except heroes, I think.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, this was 1990, and they had no
Yeah.
problem just saying, sure, they're red, but they're not good guys. I mean,
Yeah,
ogres are
I'm
supposed to
just
have this, they're kind of chaotic, but I mean,
yeah.
they
I
fight
mean,
for
we've
whoever
already
gives them
seen
the most food and the most fighting.
Mage of the Mirror, I think, actually, yeah, and Frozen Horror, both, right? We've already seen them deviate from just reproducing the color distribution from the original packs, though, right? Like the
Yeah,
alternate hero sculpts weren't red
yeah.
in the original versions.
True. They were light blue.
They
Yeah,
were they were
just
the
like the
same
monsters.
color as the miniatures, right? As the monsters and stuff, and they went with no, the heroes are red, the monsters get their own color.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
wouldn't be surprised if
they
the
weren't red.
ogres are the same color as the ogres from Mage of the Mirror.
Well, now if they're going nuts with the transparent miniatures, they could make them transparent red. Yeah,
I mean, they certainly could. I doubt they're going to for something that
keep it
is
gamer.
net new, so
Oh,
to speak.
yeah.
Right? Like I
It's kind
think
of like
the
what we
transparent
think they're gonna
was
do, what they should do, and then what they will do.
yeah. Well, I mean, it feels like the transparent was an attempt to dress up the mythic miniatures so
Yeah,
that they weren't just
yeah.
identical to stuff that
Something
mythic
to
backers already had. It was like a
grab
way
your
to
attention.
potentially say to a mythic owner, you might still want to buy this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Covert
And
Nerd, for stopping by. Sorry we didn't get to your comment right away. He says I vote bigger box because of the tiles. Hope they throw in some extra furniture like they did in ElfQuest. Yeah. Well, we have at the very least, the Ogre Throne. The Ogre Throne was just a wider piece of cardboard that would fit into a throne, but maybe for the shape of an ogre butt. One
which,
second.
if you were like me, wasn't great because
Be right back.
taking the
Go ahead and
cardboard,
keep talking. I just need to
yeah,
grab something.
well, taking the cardboard punch pieces in and out of the furniture, the plastic furniture frames tended to fray or uh, like destroy the edges of the cardboard. So I'm pretty sure my throne, I eventually glued it in place because I didn't want the cardboard falling apart as I took it, as it came in and out. Um, I guess the good side, the kind of the upside of the way that they've done the all molded furniture, though, for the remake game is if there is an ogre throne, it's going to be a distinct piece. We're not going to have to worry about sharing components with the base set at all.
You're saying we should or we shouldn't?
We won't have to worry about that, right? Because the remake furniture is all molded as single pieces.
Yeah.
Right. There's no like, oh, you have to pop the
Oh, with
cardboard
it.
out of the throne frame and
Yeah,
put
yeah.
the ogre throne in it instead. Like,
So that's a 3D printed version of it.
right.
Obviously to scale with these guys, more or less. But yeah, it's a piece of furniture. Yeah, they kind of keep us guessing because we think, oh, they did one thing, of course they're going to do it the next way, and then they swerve us and do something different, which is fine. But yeah, with it was the all
I,
plastic furniture, and then we got those mirror bases that were just
yeah, that
like
were
the old
like
doors.
the same system as the original doors.
Yeah, and then they did it again
Yeah.
in Rise of the Dread Moon. So they could do that, but yeah, there isn't anything. There
I
isn't any
wonder if,
reason to fold a piece of cardboard and do it just
yeah.
for that. They probably are just going to do something like that.
Yeah, I would imagine it's just going to be a piece of plastic, just because
Yeah,
that's the.
we're going to debate that
Yeah,
until it comes out.
I mean, I don't know if this was their exact rationale, but I think you could see potentially with the mirrors the idea that they thought that having the art was more important than having it be fully molded plastic.
Yeah, because not
Right, because
everybody's
you
going to
got the
paint it.
trade-off. Right, not everyone's going to paint it. So the question is, okay, do we want it to be a single plastic mirror piece, or do we want, a full color mirror with the full color princess on it?
Yeah, well, it wasn't an actual mirror, an actual reflective thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, they keep doing stuff that we didn't necessarily expect. I mean, who expected that we were going to have see-through dice, or transparent specters, or yeah, holographic
Right.
sheen covers. So many things could happen, and I'm sure it's 90% or more they've already figured out everything that they're going to do, and I assume that this time, just like with Mage of the Mirror, they were looking to North American fans like us, not necessarily us, individually, but just they were looking for fan feedback on those, both old and new. What were people saying back then? What are people saying now about it? I'm sure by the same token, they're looking at European players who actually had this and what people said about it and what people did. Because correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you yourself actually make like a tweak or a revamp of
I
this?
made an I made an adaptation to play it in the North American rules without the um, variable body point system. So I just kind of looked at the average attributes of the various ogres and said, okay,
Yeah,
standard ogres have this many body points, champions have this much, chieftains have this much, lords have this. I just gave them stats.
yeah. So this is the
Um,
original version from 1990, only recently
yeah.
released in Europe. And I've only
Yep.
talked to a couple of people. Glasgow Gargoyle and I had a conversation, and his perception was that yeah, it was positively received. if if
Yeah,
that's
Ogre
if
Horde.
that's representative. I mean, I've heard some people criticize Wizards of Morcar. I know that there's people on both sides that'll say, "Oh yeah, these expansions suck. They're not very good. Keller's Keep was better." But
Ogre
it seems like there's
Horde.
a little bit more goodwill towards this one. Yeah.
Yeah, Ogre Horde. My recollection, right? Because like I was, I drifted in and out of the old scratch boards, and my impression was always that Ogre Horde was looked at pretty fondly. Um, it's a little longer. It doesn't suffer from quite the same sentiment as Wizards of Morcar, where you're like this entire box just for 5 quests.
Yeah. Well,
It just
at the same time, though, there's
it's
only
a little longer.
there's only 7 group
Yeah,
quests in Frozen Horror Mage of the Mirror. Now, those have so many
yeah,
monsters that they're like 2 to 4 times longer than Keller's Keep Return of the Witch Lord, which
yeah,
those expansions are fairly challenging. And then the 92 American ones were absurd on their face.
yeah.
This
Oh
looks to
yeah.
be about in the middle, but the problem is I haven't played this with the original rules. So, yeah, the variable body point. So the first ogre, well, I'll just use an example. This will be a little bit of
Yeah,
spoilers here. So,
yeah.
like, how it would work is okay, so ogre body points. So the first ogre you meet has one, two, three, and then he's dead, or is
As
it
four.
four? Is it
Four. It's when you would reach the little
one,
skull.
two, three?
Yeah,
He's
because look
dead.
at look at look at note A below. That one makes it clear.
Oh, yeah, it says it right there. Three,
3,
and then
right?
one,
The
two,
skull
three
is on the
dots.
square that you have to be about to
Oh,
cross off the square with the skull on it, and that's when they
3 body
die.
points. Okay, so he has four. Okay, I get it now.
Yep. So that
Yeah,
ogre has 4.
so I'd have to be using that system. Like, I hate to write on here, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
This
lot of
was
ways you could
that
track it, like a die or something.
that's always been my main criticism
Move the
of
tile back and forth.
Ogre Horde in particular, but kind of the EU system in general, was it always felt like the design took an approach that felt patronizing to Morcar, where it was like, you can't keep track of any of this stuff unless we give you a place to write
Well,
it down.
they're trying to make it easy for you. They're trying to make it easy
Well,
because
yeah,
these
but
are supposed to be like no prep. You just take it out of the box. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Okay, let's start playing.
but on the other hand, then it's like, okay, so I have to remember to use pencil and then erase it if I want to play this
Well,
quest more than once,
look at this.
like
Look at the quality of this book, though. I mean, it's got a nice, like, shiny cover, and it's these pages are. This is not just paper. This is like gloss to it. So this is. I mean, it's not as nice as the remake where it's like hand stitched and stuff. It's like what? But
yeah,
but then they
yeah.
expect you to just like what scribble all over the page and then throw it away. Like, is that the deal?
Yeah,
So it's like,
it just didn't feel good to me. So I was
well,
like, I'd
then
rather
then
use
again, then
the
again, the Amer
system I'm familiar with.
Sorry, I'm going to be talking over you all night.
Yeah,
Apologize. I
that's all
do
right.
strange about all the time. Yeah, but then you get, the American North American versions of Keller's Keep from the Witch Lord, where you're supposed to take a scissors and cut the back cover
Oh
apart
yeah,
with those cards. Well, they also say you can photocopy, but it's like, oh, you want it in black
yeah,
and white or do you want it color?
right. Yeah, who doesn't want the actual
Hey,
color
Ribby.
prints, right?
Yeah. So I want to
Yeah.
acknowledge all our people in the chat here. So Bohemius says all blue is probably. That's his guess about the new ogres. Yeah, they could do that. It's a little more boring, but I would take that over most of them being gray. Now, it's true there were some variants out there that were more rare. Like if you find some gray ogres that are not painted, that are just gray for the old set, those might be worth something because this was the default color. And there's
Were
some of
those like
these in red.
factory prototypes that got out, or did any of those alternate colors actually ship in box
I think
sets?
I think they did. I think they did. I think
Okay.
the only ones that are not uh, retail products are the black ones, the ones that are actually solid black. Those
Yeah.
were, I forget
Those
what
were
the,
like in-house
yeah, I don't know
demo
what the
models
official,
or something.
yeah, I don't know what the official term is. Are they called seconds or they're called betas or, because they make the
Yeah.
sculptures and then it's like the last one before they actually just produce it, mass produce it. But it's
Yeah.
functionally identical to the one that will be, coming out of the molds. So yeah, and they're not that expensive, but I guess those were just given away at conventions like at the after HeroQuest was gone, and so now they're collectibles to people like us, like people that paint them don't care, people that want the original colors don't care, so we want them.
Yeah.
Hey Wardicon, hey Ribby, Bohemius, we had Covert Nerd here, Covert Nerd Podcast. He and I are going to do a collab one of these days. We got to talk about some more stuff. And it's just funny how this news just came out. Luca Rocks is here, Storm and Wolf. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of speculation. But I think, yeah, at the minimum, see, that's the thing. There's the minimum, and then there's whatever they want to do. I mean, they could throw anything into this box or this bigger
Yeah.
box, and we just would be like, oh, okay. It's like, oh, there's a dice tower in there now. Well, that's cool. Or, oh, there's a beanie baby of Zargon. That's pretty awesome. Like nobody expected that. But it's probably going to be something more game related as opposed to
Yeah.
merch. I mean, everybody's
I
wondering
mean,
about those little heads, those little sprue heads and the PulseCon thing. But yeah, there's
yeah.
only sorry, I got to say this. There's only 7 quests in here, but pretty much at Gen Con, it was like, and Carmine was saying, yeah, they'd want to buff it out to 10 quests. So I think that's probably what it's going to be. Same with Wizards of Morcar. I mean, he all but
Yeah.
acknowledged that that one's coming too, but just it's not going to be 1-to-1 unchanged. So yeah, say what you're
Yeah.
going to say. Tell me more.
I'd like, well, I was going to ask if you could, yeah, I think that's a good place to start, though, is maybe to elaborate on the kind of inside info that you got on what their kind of perception of these was. Because the takeaway I had from the way that it was discussed was basically that I think it seemed like they were kind of on the same page as me, where it's sort of like, okay, the US expansions kind of had a formula. It was like, okay, you got to have, you know, new tiles, new monsters, new artifacts, some new evil guy spells that are thematic for wherever the setting of the quest is. Like there was very much kind of I think we've both seen the design guidelines that were given to the people who were designing the 4 hero quests, and it was, very much a standard package of you need to do 3 solo quests, 6 group quests, and a double quest at the end. You need to do, you have this many cards, you have this much room on your tile sheet, but it seemed like the expectation was that they were supposed to use all of that.
Yeah, no
Right.
point
Like,
for efficiency and like not using it.
yeah. It was like,
Find a use
use
for
all
it.
the card allotment. Like, don't come back and be like, I only needed 10 cards. Like, come up with something to print 20 more cards for.
Yeah. Yeah, and people were.
And
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you had more to
yeah,
say.
no, go ahead.
No, yeah, and those draft notes are very interesting to me too because you're to this day you still have people saying I was going to put it stuff back in. You still have people saying, well, there should be a card for every treasury that you find, and there should be a plastic miniature for every named character, and that's never going to happen. Never, ever, ever,
No.
ever, ever. But you, as the owner of this stuff, or the guy who likes to 3D print, or the person who likes to buy miniatures, can do that. You can have a unique character
I
for everything,
did.
and when you make a new quest with another new unique character, you make another one. But the thing is, it's like I see it more as okay, they gave you 8 miniatures, they give you 10 characters. You give you 10 miniatures, there's 12 characters. That you go beyond what you have. So yeah, Rise of the Dread Moon, they give you all these amazing tiles to use, and then they flood one of the mazes with water. It's like okay, but there's no water tile. You just have to use your imagination. Prophecy of Telor, you get a big room that has no tile. You still have to use your imagination, and that just allows you to go beyond these limitations.
Yeah.
Because yeah, eventually the box is just infinitely large. There's never enough. You're always going to be buying more things to make that exact adventure
Yeah.
what it is. Because even though HeroQuest is taking that theater of the mind thing and saying, well, but how cool is it to have these 3D plastic
Yeah.
pieces and this cool artwork, so it helps kids, even though they've got vivid imaginations. It helps adults. It's like, okay, well, visually I can see where my guy is. All that is useful information when you're playing, and it's fun. It feels more like a board game than just charts and
Yeah.
graphs and notes, and your mind kind of wanders. Oh, I thought the dragon was taller. I didn't know that, like that kind of thing. But yeah, it's like halfway in between. So I get the
Yeah.
fact that they're not going to cover everything. And this expansion, I mean, there's no card for Sinestra. Even in the modern version, they could have thrown one more card in for her, but they didn't.
Right. Yeah. I
Or the Elven
actually always
Chainmail,
thought
how
it
come there
was.
isn't one more card? Yeah.
I always thought it was peculiar that the Frozen Horror got a standard monster card. To be honest, I always thought that
Yeah.
was really weird.
Fight him one time. Well,
Yeah,
originally you fought him
and
twice, but yeah, they wanted to hype him up. They had a space for the card, and so they used it.
yeah, yeah. It's just because every other sort of name. I mean, I guess he has a title rather than a name, so to speak. But
Well, he
he's
is.
a unique. He is a unique entity. He's not like there's not like a class of Frozen Horrors from
Sure.
which you just happen to fight a certain one. It's like no. He is the Frozen Horror.
Yeah.
He's the same one that
Yeah. This isn't Sinestra.
Kelvanos
This
tried
isn't.
to seal up generations before, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Like,
This isn't Sinestra. This is an Elven Archmage. So,
yeah,
and it just happens to be just like this is not the Witch Lord. This is a Chaos Warlock. But
right.
I mean, I think it's the Witch Lord. Like, okay, put a staff in his hand, give him a fancier robe, put him in a chair. Okay, fine. It's the same guy. Whatever. But yeah, your imagination
Sure.
fills in the details.
Hmm.
You know. So yeah, there's just a lot of but in one of the drafts they said like okay, Sinestra originally had a card and they said nope, we're gonna run out, so nix that, use it for something else.
Right.
Bohemia says I think they mean to print the last boss for each big box expansion. They could, or they might not.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't. Yeah.
When they're making it up from the start, they can do whatever they want. But I think they are still, even
I mean,
though
I guess they did. They did for Dread Moon, didn't they? There is a Dread Wraith card.
yeah,
And the Dread Wraith kind of
you
has the
fight more
same.
than one. You fight more than one.
Do you? I thought there was only
Spoilers.
one.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
I just gave it away. You fight more
Yeah.
than one. Yeah. Originally, you think it's just one, or maybe it won't be. I mean, we're playing that campaign, so just
But
nothing's
but
for
in
sure.
general, it feels like they went a little more with the Sinestra route, where it's like
There's
the
the OG.
figure is officially identified with a generic name, but then there's like the character, the figure is used to represent a specific character in the official quest pack.
Yeah.
But I guess what my overall point, though, right, is that it felt like more maybe that the EU process seems to have been a little more ad hoc. Like they just kind of came up
Leads
with
the
an
moment.
idea and threw whatever they came up with in a box. And the US approach seems to have been there's a certain amount of content that we think our customers are going to expect to get out of the box. So like even with the, sort of the lower effort expansions, the ones that they converted directly from the EU versions, they were like, they're not enough as is. We have to add artifacts. We have to add alchemist shops. Like they were like, these things don't bring enough new sparkle to the play experience. Actually, I don't know if I ever noticed that these quest books are like bound with string and not just staples.
Yeah. Well, staples eventually rust, as anybody who
Yeah.
owns these knows eventually.
Yep.
I want you to notice something here. I mean, everything's a little bit bigger with these sets except for the furniture, but I want you to take a look. This is a stack of 15 cards. That's how much room that takes up. And this is a stack of 15 tokens. Look at the difference. Look at the savings. Imagine the savings. You have an opinion about this, don't you? And I want to hear it. These are the spell tokens, the chaos
Yep.
spell tokens from this. The first time we had non-one-off abilities for the bad guys. And what would you say about this system?
So, I mean, what I think was happening, right, is the EU game development side was catching up a little bit to, and eventually made the same decision that the US bosses made right away, which was, well, the bad guys need their own spell cards.
Because this came out the same year as the American game system.
Right. And what you see in those early quests is, obviously a lot of the quests are the same quests, so they still have kind of sorcerer type enemies in them.
Mm-hmm.
Like what, look at like the fire mage, and there's going to be some spoilers here. The fire mage quest in the game system. In the EU version, the wizard didn't get to use fire spells that quest. The chaos enemy gets that set of spells instead.
Yep. So the wizard's
And
weaker
it's like
and
the wizard's like, well, where did my fire spells go? And in the US version, they were able to say, no, he's got his own spells. He's got his own version of Ball of Flame. The wizard can still carry his normal arsenal.
see, why didn't they just say he's got those three spells, and then so the wizard just looks at his own. Oh yeah, he's got Ball of Flame as well. Cross it off on a piece of paper.
And I mean, again, I think this comes back to the EU, that feeling, and it's my impression. I can't necessarily say it's 100% correct or what they were actually thinking, but it really does feel like those quests are designed assuming that the kids playing are really not capable of tracking stuff without physical tokens in front of them. Like
age 9. Well,
so it's like, oh, well, we can't just use the same card twice. If the person's going to use the spell, they have to have the card, and it's like, okay, well, is that really true? I mean, yeah, it would be easy to just give it to both, but
yeah,
that's not how they wrote. That's not how they wrote the notes.
Why don't you have multiple copies of the same spell card? Like, so would you say? So there's 4 of them here. Would you say that they're going to get rid of this completely, and they're just going to give us 4 cards?
I think they will, personally, because if I remember right, the European rules don't really have cast a spell as part of the standard rules for monsters.
It's just like a note.
Whereas the US rules did. They basically said, hey, if the monster has been allocated a spell, one of the 2 actions it can choose to take on its turn is to cast a spell from a spell card. And, that's in the rule book that you pull out of the game box when you buy the main, the game system. So I suspect that they're not going to want to override that, right? That every US expansion just added onto that system by just saying, here's, more cards with the same spell card back on them. You can throw them all into the same pool for your homebrew if you want to. You can, if you wanted to, right, you could write up a homebrew quest where some chaos spellcaster has, like, some spells from the game system, some spells from Mage of the Mirror, some spells from Frozen Horror. You could mix them all. They're all the same kind of spell. And they all use the same mechanic, which has been around since the game system that you bought in the store. And I just don't think that something as core as, like, what does something do on its turn?
Oh, these
is
are
something that they're going to want to introduce competing mechanics for. I could be wrong.
Wizards of Warfare. I
Um,
just realized I have them in the wrong bag. These are the wall
yeah,
bases.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, I could be wrong, certainly, but I just
you are.
suspect
You are wrong.
that they will opt to say, why not just convert them to dread spells? Right? Because, I mean, we already saw in Rise of the Dread Moon that they're not shying away from saying you may have to use the same dread spell card as a reference lots of times in the same quest. Right? We're going to, have a quest with 6 dread cultists in it.
Yeah.
Like, you might be casting Channel Dread 6 times, and they said you can handle it. Like, we're only going to give you the one Channel Dread card, and we're just going to assume that you can keep track of which monsters have cast it and which ones haven't.
Yeah. Well,
So I tend to think that they're going to convert to that system, and
okay.
they also have the problem they may need to the effects of the spells in Ogre Horde, as I recall, some of them are a little more convoluted than I remember. I had trouble. I tried to do that in my conversion, was convert them into chaos spells, and I had trouble trying to keep the spells self-contained on a card, like the text wouldn't fit.
Hmm.
Because some of the spell information is in the quest book. It's not on the
Oh,
token.
I see.
And I ended up having to do the same thing. I had to have like notes in the quest book that said, "This is what happens when you use this spell."
Yeah.
And there's also the fact that one of the spells has the same name as a spell they've already released.
Hmm.
Not that one. I think it's Mind Blast, if I remember right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Mind Blast is from Frozen Horror.
Right. And so I know you've said, "Hey, people are smart; they'll be able to tell them apart." But
Are you ready for me to
it
rip
just,
all of your points
yeah,
apart?
yeah, it just feels like the sort of unforced error to me that I don't think they want to make. Like, we've already seen them. They renamed one of the potions, didn't they? Because someone pointed out that there were 2 potions with the same names. They were like, "Sure, we'll slap a superior in front of one of them."
Hmm. Yeah. Fans have done that for years too.
Right. And so I suspect they're going to do the same thing here, where even if they print the same spell or something thematically very equivalent, that they might give it a tweaked name so that it's not just like, well, wait, if it says this thing can cast Mind Blast, which Mind Blast do they mean?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I'm glad we're airing all this stuff because you're not the first person who suggested these things, and I've had some of these same thoughts myself. And it sounds like you were thinking about this way back in the 90s, whereas I didn't even know this thing existed probably until like 2002, and I didn't own my own copy until maybe like 2 years ago. I forget now exactly. It seems like not that long ago. Got it from Board Game Geek, but it's not something I grew up playing. But I want to respond to some of those things, and I'm sure Avalon Hill's already made their decision. Whatever it is, we don't know. But they've already made their
Yeah, I mean,
decision and they've already considered these issues and they've come down on maybe one side or the other or maybe a third option we haven't thought of.
absolutely.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think if this thing is supposed to come out in the spring of next year,
Hmm.
I would imagine the design has probably been locked for a while, and they've already moved into the like making sure that all the
Right.
stuff is set up for fabrication and
Hmm.
packaging and shipping. Like they're in
Yeah.
the fulfillment stage now. They're not in the
Yeah.
like deciding what's going in the box.
Hmm. Yeah. They can correct this stuff digitally at the last minute, but yeah, it's probably fixed. Well, I'm going to respond to in no particular order. Some of the things you've said, not to say that, oh, I think you're an idiot and you're wrong and all this, even though I jokingly said, yes, you are. No, you're not. Obviously, you put a lot of thought in this, and so have they, and so have other fans. And I'm sure if there's like a if there's like a large percentage of EU fans that are saying the same thing you're saying, they'll probably go in that direction. I mean, unless they think it's absolutely stupid and it's not going to sell, they're probably going to go in that direction. So I was looking at just Quest 1. Look at all this wasted space. look at all this extra. Like, are you supposed to write notes there? So to me, whether they use this system or some other system, there's plenty of room for them to put extra explanation here if they wanted to. So I don't see any issue with each quest having detailed notes. I mean, there are North
That's,
American quests
yeah,
where there's a second page of notes, and that gets a little
yeah. I mean,
annoying. It's nice to have it all together. So there's that.
it's a
That's
good
one.
point, though. If I can cut in for a sec,
Yeah, sure.
like I hadn't thought of that, right? But if you look at the first official stuff that they've produced that's brand new, they pretty much used all the real estate on every page.
Hmm. Now
You know, yeah, every single one of these quests. I'm just
this is
flipping through the quest
this
book
is a
for Dread Moon.
reprint,
Has
but look how
every
simple
quest in every quest in Dread Moon has a full page of notes.
they could put more in. I mean, yeah, if you look at the remake stuff, they're throwing artwork everywhere. They're trying to like dress up all that empty space because it really is fairly simple. And those types of quests are better, I think, in a lot of ways because Zargon can read this over like pretty quick, like even right before the quest begins, even though he shouldn't be required to do a lot of prep, but he can, and he could go, you know what? That's pretty cool, but I think I'm going to add a little sentence of my own little stuff there to make it more interesting, or I'm going to cross that out and write a little note here. I mean, he could if he wanted to. So there's that. They don't have to fill every nook and cranny. Now, the other thing I wanted to say is the idea of flipping back and forth. Like when I started watching some of these other YouTube channels, people talking about stuff like with the frozen horror, where like the first time you get one of these tiles, it gives you a detailed explanation of what the deadly crevice does. But then the next time you see it in a quest, it's like, oh yeah, refer back to quest 4 or whatever. So you're like flipping back. What was it again? Oh okay, and then you flip back. It's like that's kind of annoying.
That's one of the things I corrected in my
Yeah,
remix.
just
Is
copy
I
and
put
paste.
I
Yeah,
put the full description of the effect in every quest in which the thing appeared.
yeah. Now I occasionally get messages from people either who are EU players or who tell me that I don't know anything about the EU game, which is true. I barely know it. I own it, but I've never played through it to like really feel like I'm really familiar with it. I usually have to remind myself, oh, what happens in this version versus some other one. They're saying, well, you don't have to play these quests in order. There's no numbers here. Do you see a number? There's no number. I mean, they encourage you to do that because they tend to increase in difficulty. But who's to say you couldn't just start on the fourth one and go to five and then one and
Mm,
but if you're
I
doing
mean,
that, you might
I
be
would.
missing stuff chronologically. They
I mean,
explain it
these
chronologically
quests actually kind of feel like they flow in a
a little bit better.
storyline. Yeah, so I don't know if I would
You
say
would
that
say
it makes sense to do these.
these particular ones. But people say like,
Right.
well, Keller's Keep, why couldn't you play those out of order? But yeah, I
You,
think in the North
to a
American
certain
ones
extent, you
they give
probably
you
could.
a yeah, they give you numbers and they say no, play one to the next. The Japanese
You know,
version they say, well, if you think this quest is too hard, you can skip it. Go to the
yeah,
next one. It's like, well, that one's not going to be any easier. But yeah, it's kind of like
yeah.
there's different ways
Ogre
to play the
Horde,
game.
Ogre Horde very definitely has like each the quest notes very clearly are telling a story of like, oh, you're outside now, you're finding your way in, now you're deep inside, now you're at like the Lord's lair, now you have to fight your way back out. So playing them in a random order, the quest prompts, I mean, mechanically you could totally do it, but the quest prompts would make no sense whatsoever.
Chaos, what's chaos? Yeah, dread, you know, for sure is a line for printing. Token are just as equivalent. Oh, Bohemius is talking about. Yeah. So again, to reemphasize the point, I don't have the boxes for these original ones. They were like cereal boxes. A lot of those got thrown away. But am I missing some tokens or? Oh, there's more of some than there are of others. Yeah, because for some of these, it's like that's how many turns the spell lasts, and other ones, that's how many instances of the spell you have. So it varies. Could you simulate
Right,
that on a
yeah.
card without having multiple
That
cards?
that's a trickier one, right? Because yeah, one of them is like they it the token is
There you
used as
go.
a duration counter rather than
Because Because if I were
Yeah.
the bad
So
guy, I'd be like, okay, I have this spell. I wonder if I should use it. So I'm like looking at it. Yeah,
I mean,
I'll
what
try to use this.
what they certainly could do is have a spell card that explains how the spell works, and then just have
Ah,
small square
there
tokens
you
that you
go.
can use as counters.
That's a great idea. Yeah, just kind of like the wandering monk. You've got this card that shows you how to use your abilities. Then you've got the actual abilities that you can whip out and use.
Hmm.
A little reference card. Yeah, there's different ways to do it. I when they did the remake and they had just a standard size card for the hero and then an additional card that tells your actions instead of having a tile that you flip over. It's kind of like this is silly, but I could also see, you just have them laying next to each other and you go, "Oh, if I need a reminder, here it is. I can look at it, lay it down." Yeah, there's so many different things. Regarding the counters, I want to say this about that. So, Rise of the Dread Moon, and Carmine said this over and over that yes, it was them wanting to kind of flex their creative muscle and create a brand new adventure, entice people with something brand new. But they were also wanting to implement all this fan feedback that they'd been getting about things that
Right.
people wanted and putting it in there. And one of the ones that I remember hearing about, like ever since I became part of the online community, so I'm thinking like 2010s, late 2010s, is well, you're underground, so you shouldn't be able to shop at the shops in between. So they take that out. But
Yep.
then you're
They put
faced
in a
with, oh shoot, I need to buy stuff and I can't do it, and I'm overflowing with gold. So they put the hideout mechanic where it's like, okay, mid quest, oh, I found the place where I can buy stuff now. And maybe not, I can't buy everything, but I can buy a lot of the stuff that I need. I can heal a little bit, not completely, but so they come up with a way to kind of fit it in, even though the way I mean, spoilers for Rise of the Dread Moon, is that there's these invisible people that you never see that are like, oh yeah, I'll trade you this, or I'll give you this, or I left these things for you. It's like, well, where are they? Like, are there figures for them? No. At best, there's just a little token that just shows a little face on it that you could put there, but is not required. They're like invisible. But maybe it's a little bit extra lore for those who want to feel like there's some realism there. You run into somebody in the middle of a tunnel and they just give you something and they happen to have the exact thing that you needed in exchange for the exact amount of gold that you had, and you're a good guy, so you're not going to just murder them and take their whole supply, right? Because you're a good guy. So it's like, all right, sure. But I have no problem like in the midst of these quests, just like you're just shopping now. It's like whatever, it's just a game. But I see how they took that fan feedback and put it in. So with this, when they're saying play it as a series, it kind of sounds odd to us because it's like, well, of course you play them as a series. What do you mean? You play one quest here and then you throw this down and go play
Yeah.
Wizard of Morcar and you throw that one away and then you go play some Keller's Keep. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they
I'm not
mean
used to doing it any other
one,
way.
two, three, four, five, six, seven. Yeah. So it sounds odd, but what they're saying is your mind points come back automatically. You get your body points back as well, but you just can't buy stuff in between. And they also are saying that you can get these large healing potions. They're not represented by anything. They're just you just write them down. So when I first started, I was playing like a North American conversion. I was trying to play Phoenix's version. We only got like 4 quests in, but it was just like big potion, and it just he had like hash marks for each one. It's like, okay, use that one up, cross it out, lose that one, cross it out, but it gives you all your body points back. Those are not meant to be used in between quests to heal you. They're just anytime. But keeping in
I may
mind,
have just thrown those out
you may have, yeah,
in my conversion. I don't think yeah,
because
I'm looking at my notes. I
you
just didn't give them
only
to the party at all.
you only get them if you're playing it as a series, which that makes it
Yeah.
sound like everybody gets them automatically. So whether they're going to actually give those to you or not, I don't know. But I was thinking, oh, they could just give you a token. Say, here's potion
Yeah.
one, here's potion two, three, four, five, and they could put a lot of them. Because I would have thought tokens are not HeroQuest. HeroQuest is tiles, cards, pieces, dice, board. But then we got Rise of the Dread Moon, where we got tons of tokens. I mean, you do not need a lunar charm. Why would you need that? It's just a fun little thing to say. Oh,
Mm.
you next time you walk up to a bench, you can cash that in and get healed, and that helps you remember that
Yeah.
you've used it. that helps Zargon because with some of these adventures, I'll be honest with you, like you've got like 20, 30 potions per hero, and I'm trying to keep track of all that stuff to keep everybody honest, and they're kind of keep me honest, and it's like, oh man, that's a lot. That's a lot to manage, and I'm a grown up. So if you're 9 years old and trying to play this, it's like, okay, that's a little bit of help. That's a little bit good. Oh, I got to glue that down. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the tokens are just a fun thing.
I'm sure I'm gonna get
Hey, drag and drop
some
TV.
adjustments that I'm gonna have to make when my kids are old enough that I get to start playing this with them because
Hmm.
I've years and years of playing this with nobody but adults, so it's
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah. I can't use those profane words every time they roll three skulls or whatever.
well. Also,
But
just
I
like you
can.
say, adjusting expectations on
Yeah.
are they going to remember to scratch the potion off their sheet
Yeah.
every time
I'll
they
make
use
sure
it?
you
Like,
turn that card over. You've used it up now. Yeah.
hmm
Well, and like, yeah, there's just so many different things. Um,
yeah.
okay,
But to your
Bohemian.
point, yeah, if they keep that, I mean, it's like I said, yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, I'm actually I opened up my the PDF of my adaptation, and yeah, I don't have anything. There's no prep text in my version. I
You should
assume
share
that
it.
I assume that Zargon knows how to play.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Um,
all of these expansions basically are just they tell you, you should have played at least some of the game system quests, if not all of them. Refer back to
right.
those.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was like, they don't need health potions. They're going to be loaded with potions from the whatever quest pack they just played.
Yeah. Well, there's something to realize about this though. I mean, us hardcore fans who want to collect everything and play everything in a specific intended order, you know, that we found on Twitter or X, we are, I don't think necessarily the majority of their fan base. So they can't assume that you own any other expansions except for the one that you just bought. So
Yep.
to me, it should be as self-contained as possible with the game system. Now,
Hmm.
that rule of thumb was violated by the Barbarian and Elf Quest packs because the original idea was back in '92 they were going to give you four of those, and you were going to encourage everyone to buy all four and put them together. Didn't pan out, but the idea would be, yeah, you go to one alchemist shop and there's three potions that are only for that one hero, and then there's one for everybody else. It's like, well, that doesn't seem fair. Well, you buy the other ones so that now you have everybody gets their own special potions they can be looking at and buying, and then you've got the general potions that people can get. It's kind of
Yeah.
convoluted. Whereas, yeah, it's kind of like when they reissue this stuff and it's like, okay, they'll put in the cards that you need, even if it's a duplicate if you happen to have some other ones. So, you get more. I don't think that's a problem. And I think people that complain about it are maybe just being a little bit too nitpicky because generally speaking, like if you buy Keller's Keep, you'd be like, wait a minute, what? Like, how come there's more orcs in here? I don't want these. I already have these guys. Why are there orcs in here? Get rid of these guys. No, you'd be like, oh great, I've got more orcs. Now I can make this quest that has even more bad guys in it or whatever. Oh, more doors. Yes. You're gonna find a use for them. So, okay, yeah, maybe you want more original things, but nothing's gonna go to waste. And if you have more of the same card, guess what? That means that when you do a random card draw, you've got more possibilities. Oh, maybe there's a greater chance I'll get courage, but there's a less chance that I'll get a magical throwing dagger. Whatever system you come up with. I guess that was wrong because spell scrolls are the only
Yeah.
random draws, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like you can come up with uses for those things. I think the only
Yeah.
time maybe it makes sense as a wine is, well, there was something else that you really wanted that now there's no room in the box for that one thing that you wanted because there was an extra thing that was just useless. Whatever. But back to the tokens. Back to the tokens. So you don't need the lunar charms. You don't need the reputation tokens either. Why do you need that? You could just write it down on a piece of
Could
paper. Oh,
just write it down.
I've got five of
Yeah.
them. Oh, I cashed one in. Okay, now I've got four. But they wanted to give you a pretty little token that you could keep, and it makes it easier to remember. Okay, I've got three of these in my hand. Oh, I got to cash one in. Oh, I've only got two now. By my spot at the table. Because I feel like as you play this game, you get like these piles and piles of cards. And yeah, people like to have cards, but your spot gets messy and your character sheet gets full of stuff, and I don't know, making it a little bit easier for you to come up with your own system to manage your stuff while you're playing, I think is a good thing.
Hmm.
Maybe some players won't need it. Oh, I memorized exactly how many times I've used that spell. Okay, but if there's any question, I can look at your spot and go, okay, yeah, you forgot to turn the card to the side, or you forgot to give me that token. Mistakes happen.
Yeah.
I want to
I
acknowledge.
mean, but yeah, we're gonna have to see how much free space they have, right? Because they're gonna try to economize the tile sheets.
Yeah, but I really
So
think
it's sort of
if
how
it
much
were,
space are they going to have to throw in some of those more luxury things? Because
yeah,
the
if they give
various
us
room overlays are mandatory,
if
right?
they
We
give
know that
us
those are going to be there.
if they give us this size, there's going to be lots of filler in this box. So I'm
No,
thinking
sure.
they could have extra ogres, they could have fancy things, they could have extra tokens, maybe for the potions. There's lots of stuff. If it's this, it's going to be really tight. So,
Yeah,
but I'm thinking, why
yeah.
would you pay $45 for this, and then you'd be like, well, why is it only $35 for this other one? It's like the box is just crammed that full. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be this, and there's going to be extra. And I think that's what and Carmine was talking about. He's not necessarily saying, well, we want to live up to the standard of 1992. He's saying we want to live up to this standard right here. They started with Frozen Horror, where they not only gave you everything that you were expecting, but they also gave you extra
They
things.
gave you something you didn't know you wanted until it was there.
Right, right. And it was just a happy coincidence that they gave us 12 mercenaries instead of just 6, because the quests are actually that hard. But they did it because they wanted to have the individual designs. They weren't using the bolt-on weapons like the old one was.
The other fun thing is that they inadvertently gave you the ability to run Dark Company.
Yeah,
Like, there's basically just enough mercs that you
for the
can
bad
pretty
guys.
much get away with it.
Well, I don't think, if I remember correctly, you don't face more than like 5 at a time in a room.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I think
you
in theory,
could
right,
still do it.
in theory, you could have deployed.
Mhm.
There's some
But
minor limitations on their weapon loadouts that the original
Morcar,
wouldn't have had, but
yeah, because Morcar could say, "Oh yeah, it's a room full of guys, and
they're all swordsmen.
4 of them are swordsmen, and one of them is a crossbowman." Yeah,
Yeah, and you can't do that. But yeah, but you've got more than enough figures to actually place them and not
even
expect to
though
run out.
even though Morcar can do this, he can say, "See this guy right here? That's a crossbowman. I know it looks like he's holding a halberd, but that's a crossbowman.
Mhm.
Just telling you, like he can do that." But yeah, it's
I'm
nice
pretty.
if you actually
I,
have the figure that you're talking about visually, so people don't go, "Wait a minute, what,
yeah,
which enemy is that again?" Okay, I'm gonna put a little piece of paper next to him so that you can know that that's the one that doesn't really look like what it shows. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and that's one thing, right, that occurred to me while we were talking in terms of things that we might not know or expect. Something that they could catch us by surprise.
They
Ogre
will.
Horde is where they started writing in monsters with ranged weapons or diagonal attacks.
Hmm. Was that the very first time?
I believe so.
All right.
Like,
After
so
this,
that they'll
after
have
the
it. They'll
stream, I'm
have a
gonna look that up to see if you're
yeah.
right,
So like
because I
you'd
don't
have a
remember. It kind
room.
of bleeds together in my mind.
You'd have a room where there'd be a note in that room, and it'd be like all the orcs in this room have longswords.
Yep.
You know, and but in particular, I think with when they give the monsters ranged weapons that they don't normally have, that
Yep.
could be a thing to surprise us as, oh wow, we got
Orcs with
orc and
bows.
goblin figures holding bows.
Yeah.
It would be a cool little extra that they could throw in that
Yeah. Again,
doesn't make or break the ability to run it, but
you don't need it,
yeah.
but it's a cool little thing.
And it would be great for homebrew because I think people love to give monsters ranged weapons in their homebrew, and having figures that drive home to the heroes, like, okay, we got to worry about those guys because they don't have to close with us.
Right. It can just trick you into traps and
Or
things.
even just a reminder that it's a thing you can do.
Yeah.
You know, like I think sometimes you can get sucked in when you're just working on stuff by yourself. You get sucked into confining yourself to the things you already know exist, and you don't think to improvise. And
Yeah, you may be right. You may be right about that. I was thinking that there was some type of ranged attack in Keller's Keep, but I guess I'm wrong about that.
I
Um,
don't not the way that they did it here, I don't think. Because it's in most of the quests, I think, if not all of them, have some room somewhere. Yeah, not all of them, but several of them.
okay, let me address some of the other things, but first, before I do that, I do want to look at the chat. So I'm sorry for ignoring people in the chat here. Gravendale Games says you mean Zargon. Yeah, I was using Morcar, the original name of the bad guy, when I was talking about the European one. Grimdead for Japanese. Yeah. So going back, Bohemia says as kids, the basic quest, we used to pick them at random. Rarely we play them in order. Otherwise, we always play the first quest over and over because we have different friends over.
Oh yeah. I mean, I
I
know the
hear that.
trial
Hmm.
by heart. Like I could probably lay out the trial without the quest book.
It's a trial by fire for sure. And yeah, we had a lot of total party kills on the trial, believe it or not, with the North American rules.
One of my favorites was when some group I was playing with for the first time, the elf just decided he wanted to pass through rock into the central room
Yep. And
from like the non-door side.
so now he has a fight on his hands, a big fight.
He's got two chaos warrior, or it's like a chaos warrior, a gargoyle, and two orcs, and he's trapped in a room, and the other heroes can't get there for like 3 turns.
I tried one time playing that's fun. I tried playing the trial not as the first quest one time. I still kind of feel like it, just for old time's
Yeah,
sake, I do it. But yeah, playing it's like, well, if you beat this one, you become a champion. And I beefed it up. I looked at the European version and the American version, and I kind of like changed the rooms so that it was like the maximum monsters that you would ever face, and it was just like, yeah, it was
yeah.
really tough.
I mean, my remix of the game system actually, this I've never actually, I haven't run it yet since I cooked this stuff up,
Yeah, that happens.
because I've had a lot going on in my life. But
Sure.
for the first time, I decided I would move it, so I actually have Trial as Quest 4
Yep.
in my setup.
Well,
With
oh, I
although
remember.
it's not 100% the same. Like, the original Trial is like, you can tell the heroes there's no traps in this quest because it's an introductory thing. It's like, no, mine has traps
Pull
because
the
now it's quest
hazard
4.
pull the hazard cards out of the treasure deck. I did that because it's like, well,
Yeah.
I didn't say traps, but I something just like a
Yeah.
trap. It's like I searched for traps. How come? It's like,
I
well, they're
never
built
it
in.
never
Yeah,
even occurred to me to do that.
yeah. I got one big complaint one time. I'm like, yeah, I think I'll remember that next time. One point I want to
Yeah.
make: the difference between children playing and adults playing. So, and this is just going back to the game system. So we've got the rescue of Sir Ragnar. You kill all the monsters. There's no monsters left in the
And then an
quest at
alarm
all.
goes off.
Then you find Sir Ragnar, the alarm goes off, no one comes to the alarm, and you just slowly march him out of the quest. Now compare that to the way the companion app handles it. As soon as Sir Ragnar hits the stairs, the quest is over, you have won, here's your reward. I'm like, what? That's not how you do it. You get him to the stairs, and then the rest of the heroes take their time looting the rest of the dungeon, getting the
For
maximum
sure.
treasure, and then triumphantly marching back. That's how you do it. The thing is, a lot of adults they want to end it. They're like, oh, we've been playing for an hour. Oh man, I can barely concentrate. I got to get back on my phone and see what's happening on social media. It's like, dude, we're playing a board game, please. People have different attention spans. Usually you think kids, oh, they can't sit still, they can't focus. When I'm playing that quest, like, we loved it. We're like, yes, we did it. Now let's get the last bit of that treasure. Let's get 100% completion. Let's get out of here. And then when you do Prince Magnus's gold, and you're carrying those chests, like
Everyone just wants to get out.
you're rolling one die to as kids, we didn't mind. Like you had the figures, and unfortunately I didn't grab the treasure chest, but the way the classic treasure chests are designed, you could just like hang them right on the weapon and it would just like balance. And so you'd just be like, "Oh, look, I'm carrying the chest." Out the door. And you're just like it's like a victory lap. Like you just had these hard quests and now you've got an easy one we're just carrying that treasure to the end. Like, oh man, I'm gonna have all this gold. It's gonna be great. We're gonna buy all kinds of stuff. Whereas adults are like,
Yeah.
just say the quest is over. Like, it's gonna take us 12 rolls to get there. Just say it's over. Like, okay,
Well,
whatever.
and I mean, I adopted as one of my house rules the unthreatened
Movement.
movement
Yeah, the
thing that
playtest rule that
Avalon
Avalon Hill
Hill
uses.
suggested, which speeds things up a lot, where it's just like you just get to roll fours on your movement dice.
Yeah, I do it even more extreme than that. Is to just say, yeah, you can move 12 if you normally would roll two dice, or six if you roll
Mhm.
one. Because
Yeah.
it's going to blunder into traps anyway.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I do say, you can't take that option if you plan to open a door. So
Okay. Yeah.
um,
Um, One suggestion, because I
basically, so that you can't just sit outside a door and be like, I'm going to get 8 squares of movement this turn, so I can guarantee that I can open the door and then reach the monster I want to attack. It's like, no, no, no.
Tispazargon's
If you're going to be
idea.
going into if you're going to go into combat, you got to roll.
I like Tispazargon's suggestion, which was to say you do that, you get your full movement, but then if a monster is spotted anywhere, you got to roll the dice and then subtract from what you just rolled, from what you had. So from there on, you got to do it. So you might have rolled too much already, and you just have to stop.
Hmm.
Now, one thing that when you're just rolling and rolling and rolling and moving, if you're using some of these, like some evil wizard, every time it's Zargon's turn, there's no monsters. I'll just draw another one
Yep.
and see what. Oh, something bad happened. Uh-oh, you know. And so then you're like, okay, come on, hurry up, Even though it doesn't matter, it's based on turns. It's like, oh man, got to
Where
get a
did
good
you get
roll.
that? Where'd you get that back image for those
Back image. Oh,
on the
yeah,
back
this
of the
is
cards?
yield in.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah,
That wasn't the back that I remember from the card.
this is
The
just
the
colored red. That's the only difference.
Yeah. No,
But
no, the other side, the
oh,
Zargon
this.
side, like the back
Oh,
of the card.
yeah, it just had a white border and it said evil wizard, and I just changed it to Zargon. Got rid
Oh,
of the
you
white
just changed
border.
it to Zargon. Was that
Yep.
already the image that was being used?
Yeah, that's the image from the
Uh,
GM screen.
right. Yeah. I didn't remember that being in part of the
Yeah.
collection
Well,
of
there's
cards.
different versions. So, well, no,
Yeah.
these are homebrews.
Right. Yeah, which I'm trying to make my
Sheng
own,
Sheng
and I'm
made
like,
these.
ooh, I like.
The like
I'm just, I'm like, I
Odanin
want
and
your
like
image. I want to steal
Odanin and
it.
like. Well, I could look for it. It's on a flash drive. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think Sheng did the original ones, and they were based on the alien event cards from Space Crusade or StarQuest. And
Yeah,
then I think
I've seen
Odanin,
Shang's.
yeah, Odanin did his own version of it, and somebody else did another variation. So there's like four or five different versions of the Evil Wizard deck that you can find. But anyway,
Mm,
neither here nor there. That's a homebrew thing. But
yeah.
back to this. So acknowledging the comments in the comment section here, we've got Gravendale Games saying, "Oh yes, some of these comments like we covered it. Sorry." Um,
Mhm.
Wordicon says you can use the mercs from the Dread Moon set as well. That's true.
Right. Yeah. If
The
you
Ogre
want to make
Horde
sure
has
you have
crossbows and
enough
spears.
Dark
Yes.
Warriors.
I do the alarm after the heroes search for treasure fifth time to prevent the alarm after all monsters are dead.
That's an interesting idea.
Ah, Gravendale. Okay, so yeah, as
Yeah.
opposed to well, what I did, I just modified the quest when Icarith and I were playing. I just put some rooms that you could never detect because there's all these like
Mm,
empty room. There's all these solid rock. I just turned them into like holding areas for a bunch of orcs. Well, actually,
mm,
no, that was the revision. What I did was I just spawned two orcs on the stairs, like every turn. So he had to fight his way through this big army of orcs to get out of there. And so they cast a bunch of magic on Sir Ragnar, so he could just like book it through, Veil of Mist and Swift Wind. But I mean, what I did later was I took like two rooms, filled them with orcs, and just said, okay, these secret doors automatically open when the alarm goes off if there's no monsters left. They come pouring out and head. Now the only problem was like, okay, am I going to run out of orcs if you just have the game system, So, but it was my idea of yeah, another way to do it. So there's different ways. If you don't want it to be an anticlimax, if you want them to fight, fight, fight the whole time, because there is that Keller's Keep quest where the monsters just keep coming forever.
the
Like
monsters keep coming.
and some heroes, and I think we probably did this when we played it the first time, was just like I'm just gonna stand and just keep on fighting. Like, are they coming forever? Yeah, they're coming forever. This war band is, hundreds strong. It's not going to run out. It's like, okay, well, I'm down to 2 body points. I guess let's get out of here. So you do that because you're not getting gold for killing them. You're not getting XP like a video game. A couple more things. Gravendale Games says I think it really spends on the player's experience rather than kid versus adult. Oh yeah, yeah, it definitely does. And I think when you're playing this game, like you compare it to other things you know. So you might be like, this plot is weird. Oh, but it reminds me of this movie that I saw or this TV show that I remember. So yeah, I can buy it. Or oh, it reminds me of this video game I was just playing. Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Even though it's ludicrous, the thing that you were just and that's kind of a cool thing too because as we know, people like familiar things. It's like, oh yeah, some other thing. It reminds me of some other thing I like. I'm playing it in a different way here. That can be fun. So knowing your audience does help. So yeah, if you know what your kids like, you put something in the quest or you interpret it a certain way. If you know what that group of adults like, although it is always fun when it brings out something surprising, like, oh yeah, wrestling, I remember that. Or oh man, I hate wrestling. Like, oh, why'd you have to put that in the game? Like, oh, sorry. Maybe it's martial arts or something. Oh, I hate martial arts. Okay, fine. It's not that then. It's boxing. I don't know. Could be anything. Um, yeah. So there's a lot of things we don't know, but you're right in that back in 1990, you could say maybe they were still figuring the game out, and they've had all this time to think. They have all these years of fan experiences and feedback to go through, and so they're going to go through all that for those people, and then they're going to sell it to the public who's never heard of this game, who maybe wants to like, oh, a simple tabletop game that we could all play together with these weird rules and like, oh, I got to figure out what these things are. But this is a board game convention. I mean, having tokens is like a really like widespread phenomenon, whether they're counters or cards or random things. Like it's pretty common. Like people kind of expect something like this in a board game. Like when I think of a board game, I expect something like this, or cards, or dice, or pieces. So I don't think. Are you still with me, Karningul? Kind of went quiet there.
Yep, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks. Um, I must not be saying anything too controversial, but I I agree with you that there is a certain like dumbing down of the game where they feel like they have to explain everything on that in that booklet. It's not necessary, but it's nice if they do that. And there is also a way in which we can just give them credit, like they'll be able to figure it out. So I think if they include extra tokens, yes, it's not necessary, but it is a way to fill space in a box where people are expecting to find extra little neat things. So that's my justification for the potion tokens, even though that's not strictly necessary. And you might not even want the potions to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what. We'll have to see how much gets literally carried over,
Yeah.
right? Because, like I
Because,
said, in mine, I was like,
mhm,
none of the other quest packs give you a bunch of free potions. Why is this one? And
yeah.
I tossed that. I tossed that in the junk pile. That didn't make it into my version because I was like, they don't need that. They get plenty of potions just from searching for treasure. But like one thing, right? That it's an EU expansion. I'm expecting to be an alchemist shop. I'm expecting we're going to get some
Yeah.
kind of potions that are thematically tied to the quests in this book in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was a
Because
shock to me to find out that, yeah, when I look at Keller's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord, the original versions from 1989, like we didn't get them until 91. And it's
right,
like, wait a minute, where's the alchemist shop? How come there's
yeah,
no like artifacts, spell scrolls, or anything? How come those don't exist? You know?
yeah,
So yeah, I would expect something like that to be added to this. What they might
yep.
be, who knows? I
Who
mean, a potion
knows?
of dexterity would be really nice because you got to jump over all these big pits that do more damage depending on how much armor you've got.
Potion of ogre strength.
Ogre
Like
Grog. That Ogre Grog can finally come in handy. You can bribe him to fight
yeah.
for your side, and then that's when you take the red figure and swap him in and
Mm,
say, ah, he's a hero now. He's a mercenary. Oh, but the Grog wore off. Now he's coming back. Okay, we'll swap out the blue. I mean, I don't know what kind of
yeah,
things they could come up with. Maybe they'll use Ribby's remarkable rims, and they'll let you, say this is a friendly ogre or bad guy ogre. Use the other
yeah.
color.
So, but yeah, just to I actually went and looked it up while we've
Okay.
been
Oh,
chatting
good.
to get back to the spell casting thing,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the original. Well, not the original. It's not the first edition, but it's I guess the revised EU rulebook, right?
Second edition from 1990.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Um,
This first
yeah,
edition,
I
second
you know
edition.
I grabbed I just
Yeah.
grabbed the PDF off Yieldin and took a
Yeah.
look at it.
Yep.
Um, the rules are described much, kind of more simply, right? It says you move then fight, or fight then move,
Yep. Take an
and
action and then engage in combat. Yeah.
well, and then it's like for casting a spell, it says when it's their turn, the wizard and the elf characters have the option of casting a spell instead of attacking.
Yep.
There's nothing about monsters casting a spell whatsoever.
Yeah. I don't think that's a big deal.
No, I'm just noting though, but then what they tended to do was when they wanted to have some kind of magical enemy, the quest would just kind of improvise it, and they
Yeah.
would do it differently in different places, So
And I think that's okay too.
the fire mage worked differently from the witch lord, that kind of thing.
I mean,
Well, but when it,
you can't reasonably teach someone the entire
excuse me,
game with just this page.
yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, say what you're going to say. Sorry.
Well, so what that meant though was that there was no established mechanics that people were used to when Ogre Horde came around. It was like all we've ever done up to this point has had one-off enemies with specific mechanics that were unique to them. Like I think the EU version of the Witch Lord is just like he just gets to summon an undead figure every turn.
Yeah. So you're looking
And
at having a universal system that's in the base book
right,
that you already know about, and then you just add to it with these quests rather than it's all right here. And then in the next quest, it
right,
might be something totally different.
right. And then in
Next
Wizards of
expansion, it
Morcar,
might
it
be
was like
totally different.
right, and then in Wizards of Morcar, they went forget about the whole token system. Now each of the spellcasters has a unique deck of spells that
Yeah, 6 cards.
defines what they know.
Right.
And it even like the spells in Wizards of Morcar don't even completely work if you're not using cards. Like the heroes get a dispel or some kind of a counter spell something that like makes a spellcaster have to discard one of their spell cards.
Well, that could still work. They just say, okay,
Well, but it's
cross that one off.
But I mean, from a strictness of language perspective, it's like, what if they want to use that spell against the Ogre Horde? It's like, how do you make someone discard a spell
easy
token?
They've got 6 cards. You roll your d6, so 1 through 6.
Yeah.
Oh, you discard 3. Okay, which was 3? That was Mind Blast. Now that one's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is nicer to be just say, oh, I got to flip that card over. Is it? Darn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that they're likely. I think the other thing, and you touched on this, right, is
I want these though.
What is their audience actually like? I mean, I think we always have to remember we're not the average customer,
right,
for Avalon Hill, right? We're way more alert and knowledgeable about this game than the typical customer is.
We're gonna buy everything and we're gonna rip it to shreds. Whereas, yeah, other people, if they think something sucks, they're not gonna buy it.
And and to a certain extent, this is the first release where I really feel like you're going to have people in camps where you can't. It's going to be. I mean, I guess I don't know if it's impossible, but I feel like it would be very, very difficult to have a single release that can please everybody. Because like we've got a couple people on the Discord who are saying, I want to just see it re-released exactly as it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and you've got
section 1
you're going to have
unchanged, and section 2 are the revised bonus version from Avalon Hill.
Yeah, but you're going to have. But this is what we started getting into earlier today. Is you're going to have a lot of their customers that have never played any system of rules but the US/remake rules. Don't even know that Against the Ogre Horde was a pre-existing thing. Like they may look it up or hear, they may, Avalon Hill may say, hey, here's, this expansion that's never been released in North America before, and we're bringing it to you. But I would guess most of their customer base is expecting to get a product that they can open and will work seamlessly with the system that they already have.
That's one possible thing.
I would just assume that's what they're going to look at as the market reality is, like you said earlier, right? They have to say, hey, we have to assume this might be the first expansion they've ever bought.
Yes.
we don't want them opening it and getting confused. Like, wait, why are there these weird tracks for body points? Why does it say all the other monsters only have one? Like,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think some of the comments made more recently were kind of got me thinking about those things too, because my initial reaction was to just to dismiss that and say, nah, because it's true. I don't know how many people bought this back in the day. There might be a huge contingent of fans, and they're going to make those people are going to want it as is. I doubt it, but maybe they're going to want it as is. So they'll cater to those people, but they know that it's broken and it sucks. And the rest of people who are just coming into the game fresh are going to go, I don't like this. It's the weird one. It's the odd one out. So they may make some concessions that way. But one thing one person said, and I sorry to credit you, I forgot who said it, but they were saying even if you just use the game system dread spells, you're not going to be able to outfit the Wizards of Morkar exactly as they are. You're going to have to either change the spells they have, like the Orc Shaman. Almost none of his spells are there except for summon greenskins, like summon orcs. So you're going to have to create new cards anyway. So if you're doing that anyway, you might as well, like, you can recreate their spells. Yes, you can make them a little stronger, a little weaker, depending on the balance, but I don't see it as you can't create new chaos spells or new dread spells. You've got to use the old ones from the game system because we already know that they don't keep themselves to that standard because Frozen Horror had new spells. Mage of the Mirror had, like, all of them have new spells. Like, so people are expecting new spells anyway. So yes, you can use the pre-existing ones, but you're going to have new ones. And like you said earlier, there, people complain, oh, there's two potions of speed. Okay, fine, we'll rename it to celerity. Oh, there's two potions of restoration and they have different effects. Okay, fine, one's superior restoration. So by the same token, they say, well, here's a different, here's, incredibly evil rust versus regular rust. It does a different thing. Oh, here's, dark mind blast, or here's, like, incredible mind blast. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that's just going to come up with all the names. I couldn't even guess Dread Moon when they were trying to have me guess the name.
mm,
you know. Uh, but the point is, if you're really worried about that, you can easily change the name, and now you've solved these seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Someone has said, "Well, you can't possibly do this because it has the same name." Okay, we changed the name. Oh, okay. Well, now what's the
yeah,
excuse? Okay, fine. Well, am I really going to get this confused with a card? By having it be a token, you just say the Mind Blast token. Like, oh, I'm looking at the Mind Blast card. Oh, I need the Mind Blast token. Oh, okay. So, I mean, that could be another excuse to use these. If you don't like these, if you don't like the way they look, like, they could change this design. Who says it has to be an oval like this with these colors? But I
yeah.
think
I mean,
they take
yeah,
a little
I,
bit of nostalgia for these. So, I mean, maybe some artwork that kind of is reminiscent of that.
yeah.
I mean, what's wrong with that? I think that there's a value in that sort of nostalgia there, but it's true. Just
I
like
just,
Encharming was saying, like he was saying, listen, we do want to bring these things back. We understand people like them, but we're not going to bring something back and copy it exactly that is broken. So
yeah,
they learned that lesson after the Frozen Horror.
right.
So they felt
I,
more free to change stuff. So I think they will change some things in here. The
yeah,
question remains,
I,
what will they change and to what degree? I don't know. A lot of these ideas are kind of like interesting, but yeah, go ahead,
yeah.
say more, say more.
I mean, that's the thing that was the point I was already making, though, is like, I don't actually know that the people with nostalgia for the who remember Ogre Horde as it was are actually that large a portion of their customers.
Yeah, hopefully they do that research and figure that out.
I mean, I think, the people
Is it
who
100 million people
have
or is it
been, yeah,
10,000 people?
yeah, the people who, I mean, I think the people like us that are knowledgeable, we're vocal. We're a probably disproportionate amount of the discourse comes from people like us because we're the
Yeah,
ones who spend all our free time
we're a
thinking and talking about the game.
small number of the actual buyers, I think. Don't you think?
Right, but you really needed to go digging for info on HeroQuest on your own initiative back in the day to even discover that Ogre Horde was a thing. Somebody, I think, yeah, Greymandal said in the chat just now, right? Pretty much nobody in the USA. Like,
Yeah, but
I knew about it because I went and looked it up and was like, oh wow, there were expansions that they never released over here. That's really cool.
well, let me ask a rhetorical retort to that. How did players in Italy find out about the Frozen Horror? Like before they threw it at a convention and said buy this? Like how did they know about it?
I
How
don't think they did.
how did German players know about Mage of the Mirror until all that?
They didn't.
Yeah,
Well,
so
but that's the point. Is
they
they didn't.
still yeah
They
they
people
marketed it to
people.
them. Yeah,
I mean, but the type of comments you see are from people from particular markets who are like, I never knew that there were more than 4 expansions total. You know,
I didn't find out
even
about this
people
stuff
who are
until
relatively
2002.
knowledgeable, like,
Yeah,
you know, because some people even in the U.S. didn't even know that Mage of the Mirror and Frozen Horror were actually
yeah,
released
they were
products.
barely. Yeah, the only reason I knew they existed is because our copies of Keller's Keep and Return of the Witch Lord had a flyer that had kind of a blurry
Yep.
photo of them,
I
and there was
I
an order
remember the
form.
flyer.
Yeah, and there was an order form that mentioned them. And at first I was thinking, well, duh, people in the EU had a flyer for this, but I checked and the flyer doesn't mention this one. So
Yeah.
they would have found out about this. I don't think there was a TV
Maybe
commercial, but
maybe by seeing it in a store.
yeah, seen it in store, Sears catalog, whatever toy stores were popular in Europe, they would have, yeah, seen, oh, Ogre Horde, $15 or
Yeah.
pounds or whatever it was. So, but yeah, it wasn't like thrust in your face saying like this is the new expansion that you got to buy. It was Keller's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord, and then
Yeah.
yeah, there might be some other ones out there.
And it looks like Storm and Wolf has chimed in with an answer to your question about some of
Ah,
those EU folks,
they were
right?
near
Saying,
bits. I remember they became a sought after thing around 2002 in the German HQ community.
right, by which point they were already obscenely expensive on the
Yeah.
secondary market.
Yeah, and I can just totally imagine Hasbro saying, "Listen, Avalon Hill, we want you to do Frozen Horror next because look how expensive that thing is as an eBay. People want that, not realizing they want it because it's rare and they never played it, not because it's like really great to play. I mean, it has
I
lots of
mean,
cool plastic
it's.
in it. I mean,
I think as
who
long as
who
the
wouldn't want
players.
a bunch of these? Like this looks awesome, but then you read it and you're like, oh man, that kind of sucks. That
I mean,
needs some
it's there.
tweaking.
There's some mechanics in Frozen Horror that are a little, maybe a little bit too like
Yeah,
one bad
yeah,
die roll
that
and you
looks
just
awesome.
die.
Yeah. It's more
But
like a
I
video
do.
game that you play over and over, even though HeroQuest doesn't play that way because you're supposed to remix the quest. So now yeah, is that really fun
Well,
for most
you know,
kids that
you know,
age?
but I do think, and yes, there are some playtesting errors. You know, like some. Oh wait, they forgot to put this artifact in any of the quests, kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
They forgot how traps
But
work. Yeah.
I actually think, right, like, again, I've played most of my life. When I've played this game, it's been with adults who are pretty competent gamers in general.
They don't mind sitting
And
there for 6 hours while you play a game.
well, and the all the other quests, often the complaint tends to be more they're too easy, right? Like
Yeah.
that there's not enough challenge to
I
really
always
push the
laugh. I
players.
laugh at those comments. It's like, oh, it's too easy. It's like, okay, well, let's play the Frozen Horror rules as written and see how you do. Oh,
Right.
you
And
died
so and
again.
so
No, that's too
there,
hard.
there's some stuff, there's
Let's
some
play
lack
some
of
Keller's Keep.
polish,
Let's play some Keller's Keep.
but I actually think that the brutality of Frozen Horror is a welcome thing to have as an option, in the
It's
same way
I
that
think it's too
like
extreme.
in the same way that like certain D&D modules were once released where there was like, hey, nobody's forcing you to buy this. This is for someone who's like, hey, my players say they never are challenged and we want a really
Yeah.
brutal module to play
It's
through.
it's a classic in the world of gaming. I mean, asteroids, people figured out how to get, huge scores by leaving one rock, floating around. So they made Asteroids Deluxe and they just crushed everybody's soul and the game was less popular and they made less money. It's like, oh shoot. So it's like find the happy medium between the two. Yes, you can easily take the Frozen Horror and just give everybody much more potions and treasure and stuff to find to compensate, or you can just delete a bunch of the monsters and traps and make it a little more manageable. You can do that. But the point of
Yep.
HeroQuest is it's not made, I mean, even though, yes, hardcore gamers, RPG enthusiasts, people with lots of experience play it too. That's a lot of us. But it's also meant to be a game that you can put in the hands of someone who has no experience, who is not
Yeah.
just going to be utterly crushed. And yes, you could say, okay, they play the game system, they pretty much know what they're doing. Now they're ready for the big challenge of Frozen Horror.
Yeah, and if you throw them into Frozen Horror, they're probably
Or
not going to have a great time.
no, yeah, or it's Christmas. Hey, here's the game system. Here's the latest expansion. Oh yeah, let's play the new one. Crushed, destroyed. You thought you had a bad time playing the trial. Well, yeah, and some kids are not going to be like, well, we got the rest of the summer and this is our only entertainment, so let's just hammer it out and figure it out.
Hmm.
It's like, nah, let's go play something that's easier. This is
Yeah.
frustrating. And some grown-ups are like that too. Like
Yeah,
when I was 14, I was a
absolutely.
sore loser. I hated losing at games. Like you would have to like convince me to play another game if I got crushed that hard. So yeah, it's knowing your audience. So I think would you say that this against the ogre horde by itself is like where would you put the difficulty on this?
It's it's intermediary. It's
Hmm.
probably. I mean, it's harder than.
Well, with the North American
Um,
rules, the body points of the monsters all go up.
yeah,
So there's that.
yeah. So I mean, so it's harder than Keller's Keep or Witchlord, but it's still definitely easier than Frozen Horror or Mage of the Mirror.
Even if you added 3 more quests of similar difficulty,
I mean, I tend
I
to
could
look
buy it.
at quests. The thing is though is that like quests burn resources, but they also give you resources,
Yep.
right? Like you use some potions, but you find some potions and you find some
Right.
gold and you use that gold to buy more potions.
Oh, that's something else we should mention. In the European rules, any potions that you got from the treasure deck have to be
Right.
used in
They,
that
they they
quest.
have to be used or they go right.
Right, right.
So
So there's
that
that.
helps to compensate. The fact that you can accumulate potions helps to compensate for the fact that the quests were not written with
Right.
US monster stats in mind.
Another thing I want to say though is if you were playing, so in Europe, you could have the first edition or the second edition, and these expansions don't necessarily they can't like force you to use one or the other. So
Right.
if you're playing this with the first edition, then the gold and the potions are going back into the deck to be
Yep.
found again. To be fair though, in the European rules, every room can only be searched for treasure once, not per hero, like in the North American
Yeah.
version. So yeah, you're going to be limited by the number of rooms. And if there's a note, you get that, and if there's no note, then you get the card. So
Right.
there's that. So there's none of this like, well, I searched this particular treasure chest, and then I searched the cupboard, and then I searched the floor. Some people like to play that way, but that's a homebrew. We had this big back
Yeah.
and forth on Yield In about it. I learned more about the game trying to counter the arguments that were being presented to me to say, no, 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 they meant to do it this way. They talked about doing it that way in the drafts. You may have seen it.
Yeah.
They never actually published that. That would have been an interesting way to play. And actually, at Gen Con, we actually did play it that way. You could search a room, you get a card, then you search each individual piece of furniture, and there was like different things. Like you'd find artifacts, you'd be a wandering monster, you roll a die to see what it was. It was chaos, but it was really interesting. The problem is it extended the time it took
Took forever.
yeah,
Yeah.
it took forever. But I mean, everybody was entertained, so I guess it was successful. So
I mean, I think that's one of the things you always have to remember, right? Is the rules and the mechanics and the elements that make up these games are always a compromise, right? It's are you going
yeah,
for realism? Are you going for complexity? Are you going for simplicity? Are you going for time save? Like all these things, you're balancing all these different factors, and
lots of
it's like, okay,
balancing.
we would prefer to do this from a realism perspective, or from a flexibility perspective, or just
Yeah,
from a standpoint of giving the players options or giving
yeah.
Zargon more options, but it's like, but it just makes the quest take 2 hours to play.
Yeah. I want one or two. Usually, people when they say I want one or two things to be more realistic. The other stuff I can live with. Like
Yeah,
I want my crossbow to be like, it takes 2 hands and it takes like a whole turn for me to like cock it, and I've got to like have 10
or you want
bolts
people,
per quest that I purchased. In this, if the string breaks, I got to like restring it, which takes another turn. It's like, okay, you can do all
or
that stuff.
and
I
and
don't
you've
think
got to
that's
have a,
fun.
a maximum range. It
Yeah,
can only fire 8 squares away,
and
and
see, I use that argument against people because I'll say, okay, well, the world record, you know, archer can hit that distance. You think these legendary heroes aren't that good? I think they are. And oh, why wouldn't you keep a second string with you? And I'm sure you carry just enough bolts for this quest, and you got just enough money. There's invisible porters, whatever. But yeah, somebody wants to put that in their game, they do it. And if they have more fun, that's great. I'm going to acknowledge some comments here. Storm and Wolf says, okay, HeroQuest was always a game aimed at young people trying to get into the fantasy stuff. Agreed. As, however, the first real dungeon crawler offering a sandbox system. And that it then disappeared from the market for 30 years without anything really taking the space. Made it really intriguing for a lot of people who grew up with it, having nostalgia, drew a lot of creative people adding to it. I think, to be honest, there are many similar and even better games nowadays in that area, but none of them has this nostalgic nigh legendary status, and none have brought so many people into the tabletop RPG and miniature hobby. Now, I do not know any other board gaming community being this open to homebrew and this demanding to a company to keep everything available to everybody. That is my humble opinion and cause of the success of HeroQuest. Well said. Well said. We
Yeah.
should have had you on this show, Storm and Wolf. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Um,
I do want to
I mean,
say in recent
I think
years,
that,
you have had a lot of nostalgia for HeroQuest, but yeah, people haven't been creating. I mean, I guess there was Ultra Quest, but yeah, not quite. It's like it was mostly like video games or card games that had like a logo that kind of looked like this and four heroes, but it was something different. What were we going to say, Karningul?
I mean, I think also HeroQuest has always stood out visually, right? Like that was one of the things that if I think it was Stephen Baker, right, has said, right, was the idea of all, highly detailed 3D miniatures, no paper tokens, no, A-frames,
Unless you're in Brazil.
three-dimensional doors, three-dimensional furniture. Like there was nothing else on the shelf like it, and that remained true even for a long time after it was out of production. It was still like nobody is filling a void with a game that just has the kind of
Yeah.
I'm not even like if it was a house, I would call it the curb appeal. Like you look at it and you're blown away by the effort that went into creating an immersive playing surface.
Hmm.
And even games that are more complex or deeper in some one way or another don't necessarily grab you with that real feeling of like, wow, I can picture how these guys are on this dungeon exploring through all these rooms full of dilapidated cupboards and torture racks and fighting skeletons and
Yeah. It aids the imagination as you go.
yeah.
And yeah, people have different tastes, different aesthetic tastes, and a lot of this, like you could say, oh, what's so great about this thing? Well, let me tell you what's so great, and then you get that whole meme and shout out to the bard and everything. Where is that guy?
You got to
Um,
close the door against
yeah,
the evangelizing
yeah.
people coming to tell
Fill
you
fill in
about
group of evangelizing people that you're trying to not answer the door of. Yeah.
right.
So,
You've
but
dropped the closed door in their
it's a
path.
simple design. It's not as likely to break unless you step on that sword. It
Yeah,
would
I
be
mean,
easy to
I
paint,
had
and
some
right
I
away, like,
definitely
okay,
had
there
some
it is.
fiddly bits break over the years, but
Yeah. And with the bendy plastic, it's like I prefer design like this than like say the abomination with the spear like jutting out to the side and it takes up too much room.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
let me just acknowledge a few more things that are being said here. Let's see. I can see maybe in the future, but the time difference is a bit of a killer. It's 4:43 a.m. here, Stormwolf. Well, yeah, we love playing with European players, but we just have to like start earlier. Bohemia says, I really like Frozen Horror and Mage of the Mirror as an adult. I really like the challenge. I see it as a hardcore mode and require preparation. You can't just jump in with a fresh party. Actually, yes, you can. We've proven that can be done, but you do have to kind of overload the system. Like we played the solo quests with 3 heroes. That's how we did it.
Yeah. Like
But they
when
were
I
brand new
remixed it,
people.
I just did away with the solo quests entirely and
Made them group
beefed
quests.
beefed them up and turned them into group quests.
Yeah, because you can take a basic hero, let him find a ton of equipment and potions like right at the start, and then he's effectively a veteran hero at that point. But I
Yep.
mean, Strange Bus, PSK, Blue Star, none of them had played Hero Quest ever before. All of them had
Mm.
played D&D before, and we started them off in the Frozen Horror with basic heroes, but it was a barbarian and two guardian knights. That's how we did it, and it was a
Mm.
challenge, especially because PSK insisted on running off by himself to kill stuff. I think just to mess with me. It was funny because it's like it created a character. He was a meme in his own game. So, but it was a lot of fun. But what we did was we split up those quests. So instead of just we sit down and we play one quest until it's done, next week we come back and play part two, part three, part four. So it takes us a month to finish one quest. That's a little more manageable for a lot of people than just okay, we're just going to sit here for 6 to 8 hours and finish it. So, and it's hard getting adults together. So, yeah, week to week, I mean, we have a lot of people that came back, but sometimes like people would be gone for months and then they join back in. Oh, you're still playing this? Hey, give me a piece of that. So, back in. And you just okay, well, here's a hero. Here's what he's got so far. You can pick up where we left off, give it your own name, and off you go. Storm and Wolf says, "Oh yes, the furniture and miniatures and the art made it visually and haptic appearing." In Germany, we got some The Dark Eye board games, German tabletop RPG copy of D&D. Yeah, see, I'm less familiar with some of these other games. I remember hearing about them, but I never saw them. I never played them. Never had a chance to buy them. Gravendale Games. Is the release actually confirmed by Avalon Hill, or is it just a rumor off the website listing? Bohemia says yes, but basically you had to pump the party and was not fresh. Okay, so I want to say something right here and now, which is what we said at the beginning. I have no reason to doubt that the Ogre Horde is really coming out in 2024, around March, April. The reason is I have no reason to believe that Hasbro would send false release schedules to two different stores in two different states and to websites in the UK. Like, why would they do that? Why would Hasbro troll people like that? Alternately, why would these stores just make up lies for a company that they work with? Neither of those make sense to me. And if it wasn't true, and I'm at Gen Con, and I'm not trying to flex or anything because other people have interviewed them before, the Avalon Hill team members. If it was not true, why wouldn't they just deny it? Say, we have no plans for that. It's not coming out. It's not true. That's a false rumor. Oh, it is true, but it's coming out in 2026. Like, there's so many ways they could answer that. Instead, they just say, I don't know what you're talking about. But if we did release it, I think we'd make it 10 quests, and I think we'd probably put more in the box, and it would probably be a bigger box. Like, the way in Carmine, Chris Nato, chose to answer the question led me to believe that yes, it is coming out. And
Yeah, it made it very much sound like it was something that
why would they
they
put
wanted to do
why would they put that symbol in the concept art for that arena that they showed us? That same symbol that
on the throne.
oh, hey, that's a Warhammer. But yeah, it's like they deliberately teased us with stuff that. See, the thing is, like, I understand that the Avalon Hill guys are having some fun with us hardcore fans. They'll like show us something, it's out of focus and it's in the corner. It's like, oh, they're gonna see that and go, oh yeah, I know what that is. That must be this. And then right before this is gonna get released, they'll start talking about something else, and they'll be like, oh, what's that? And we'll be like, oh, let's figure out what that is. And then, haha, this came out in between. Like they always do that. But they're not gonna try to fool the general public. So that's why when they were showing Sir Ragnar on the cover of Rise of the Dread Moon, even though we didn't get a figure of him specifically, it's like they're not going to put him on the cover if he's not in the game because they're going to be fooling people that buy it in the store now. So yes, he is in the story. He, doesn't have his dedicated figure, but it's incorporated. So I think with against the Ogre Horde right now, we don't have any pictures of the box. We don't have any pictures of the figures. We just know that the name. But they're not going to create another expansion pack that has nothing to do with the Ogre Horde and call it the Ogre Horde just to fool us. Is my
Yeah.
thought. So
No.
I
Even
think
if it's got substantial
it's
changes,
just
whatever comes out is going to be at minimum inspired by the original.
yeah, it's just an accumulation of evidence. So we've got the teasers at Gen Con and the artwork, which they repeated at Spiel Essen. Okay. So they showed that logo, which is associated with the ogres, and they showed there was also some artwork. It looked like this bloody tile where it's like weapons on the ground. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so
Mm. It's one of the overlay tiles from Ogre Horde.
yeah, this one here. Can you see that? Yeah, there was like in the arena you saw lots of weapons laying around with blood, and it's like, oh, that looks
Mm.
like that. So yeah, why would they do that? So now that doesn't mean that it's coming out March 31st, but that means it's coming out. Like it's definitely coming out. And why would they talk about it with such confidence if they weren't ready to release that information yet? So no, Avalon Hill has not confirmed this. They have not stated it. But for years, they have been saying stuff on Twitter, X, saying like, "Oh, there's still some European quest packs from the 90s that deserve some love," in response to a question about, when are we going to get more original stuff? Well, what European quest packs that haven't been given love are they talking about? There's only two, this and Wizards of Morkar. And they said, "Oh, ogres, ogres, ogres." They've been talking about ogres for a long time. Ogre furniture. Well, what ogre furniture is there? There isn't any except for this throne. And yes, there were ogres in Mage of the Mirror, but Mage of the Mirror has already come out yet. Why are they still talking about ogres? So
Yeah.
I have no reason to disbelieve. I mean, the same sources that are leaking these things have been reliable thus far. So I trust them.
Yeah.
So
They're
yeah, you can.
actual vendors, right, that have
Right.
sold that are selling these products, and people are
Yeah.
ordering from them, and they're getting them shipped to them. So,
The only thing that'll stop against the Ogre Horde from coming out is Hasbro changing their minds and saying, "Oh, just kidding. We don't want this to come out, or we want you to, focus elsewhere. We're laying off the entire team. Oh, we just, I don't think anything that catastrophic is going to happen. But if they wanted to, they could pull the plug and just say no more. And then all the
yeah,
stuff they planned for the next 3, 4, 5 years, gone. That could happen. Hopefully it doesn't.
I mean that's what happened to the original,
Yeah, yeah. They were going to do two more, at least two more quest packs. We were going to get Wizard and
and
Dwarf.
then they just
And
had the rug pulled out from
and
under them.
that's another thing I want to talk about because, and just briefly, because I know we've done it before, is Encarmine's response to when are these coming out? When are we getting the dwarf and the wizard pack? Because originally they said we have everything, like we have all the drafts. Like, oh, some fans have the drafts. Well, guess what? We've got them all. And if you're missing anything, we've got that too. Like, so they've got the sculpts, they've got the art, they have the rights to everything. So fans don't have the rights to that stuff. I mean, we might have like photocopies or pictures of things. We might be in
Hmm.
contact with some of those artists. We might be like making our own versions for all they know, but they have it. So there's nothing stopping them from making it if they wanted to. But the way he explained it is they don't feel hemmed in anymore by what came before, in the sense that back when they were designing the game system, they were trying to copy it word for word, more or less, as much as they could. And they were grabbing stuff from the European version and sprinkling it into the US version to give you a best of. But once they got to Frozen Horror and they realized, oh, there's some problems here. People have actually like complained about this stuff before and are making their own changes. So they felt a little more free with Mage of the Mirror. This is what I gathered. And then with this, they're going to feel very free to change things, even while maintaining kind of the skeleton or the outline of it. I don't know that to what extent that's actually going to happen. I mean, maybe it'll just be like 3 quests tacked on and then it's all the same. But maybe, like you say, they'll change this mechanic or they'll change some other thing that we don't know about. But with the dwarf quest pack, it was only half done. So assuming they don't have some extra pages that we don't know about, they'd have to make it up. And with the wizard quest pack, it was like 80, 90% done. So there'd be a little bit to change. But the thing is, unlike these that have nostalgia behind them, and people can buy these on eBay and go, oh, okay, this is what I can expect. There's nothing for people to look at unless they dig up those notes, which only a few people have seen. So because of that, they can just, I think they're just going to sift through that stuff and just come up with their own thing. They might use some ideas here or there. I mean, we probably will get some type of dwarf focused adventure. This was not the
Yeah,
dwarf focused adventure.
I think the other thing to
Wizard.
consider with the dwarf and elf packs as they were originally conceived, right, is that part of what they were trying to do was use all of the molds from the European
Yes.
expansions up.
And I want to be a little bit respectful of like Luca Paci and some of the stuff that they didn't want to release to the public yet. But yes, the idea, the thought process that we got a glimpse of from the designers of those packs was that they assume the North American players have no idea about the European stuff and vice versa. But they had full access to the European packs. So they had a copy, basically photocopies of the Ogre Horde stuff. Same thing with Wizards of Morcar. And they were taking those figures. So they're like, so these guys would have been in the dwarf pack. Like these guys would have. They would have had like different stats, different abilities than what you saw here. Just like these guys were put into Mage of the Mirror with all of a sudden 10 body points, and they didn't have that mechanic where you can't pass through them because they take up the whole corridor, like anything like that. So yeah, they were using those assets as inspiration, absolutely. So
Well, but also from a physical component perspective, right? Like,
yeah, and these
are you
guys,
really going to have 4 special wizard figures in Wizards of Morcar, and then the wizard pack has 4 special wizard figures again?
yeah,
Now
well,
now that you're trying to make it a single integrated product line, like it would feel very duplicative.
well, it doesn't have to. I mean, you could just say that's an orc. That's an orc with a crossbow. That's an orc with a a
No, no,
staff
no.
and a
I mean the
spear.
wizards, right?
Oh yeah. This is Fanrax the necromancer. This is Bildar the geomancer. Like I mean, why not?
Well,
This
but what I mean,
this
right, is
this
that they
guy,
they were trying to find homes for the same
yeah.
figures, right? They were
You're
like,
thinking
hey, hey,
it's less
person who's
special. It's less
Mhm.
special if you just suddenly say, "Oh yeah, this character that is so well established as the frozen horror is now the swampy meat man or something." Like, oh, okay. No, that's the frozen horror, not the swampy meat man. You can't tell
well,
me it's a
or
swampy
even
meat.
if they make a new miniature, creatively it feels duplicative, right? It's like, oh, we just got an expansion that added a whole bunch of new wizards, and now here's another expansion with a
I
whole
don't
bunch
buy it.
where the main feature is a whole bunch of new wizards. Like,
RantCast. I don't buy it at all because who is going to turn down more miniatures? Are you? Is the average customer? I mean, if they see another pack and it's like they
I don't
can't,
know.
they're not just gonna have a piece of paper in here saying, "Oh yeah, if you happen to have one of these other expansions, use those figures." No, they're gonna give them to you, and yeah, maybe they'll just change the color, or
I
maybe it'll
think
be
it's
a whole new sculpt.
it's it's more that if I were them, I'd wonder if they would start getting blowback if, right?
Oh,
Because
you're just
just
being
just
lazy. You're just being
right.
cheap.
Well,
You're
like
being
the idea,
greedy.
right,
Yeah.
originally was they said our U.S. customers aren't going to have access to these,
So let's
so
give it
we're
to
going
them
to
in another form.
repurpose.
Yeah.
We're going to repurpose these miniatures and use them for something totally different, and this will be the only way that our customers will ever experience this. But now it's going to be like, no, no, no. Their customer base is going to have access to Ogre Horde and Wizards of Zargon or whatever they're going to end up calling it. And then
Nowadays,
if they like,
I don't think
yeah,
so. No.
in the remake,
Well, you mean if they release Wizards of Morcar and then release the
a
Wizard
Wizard
Quest pack?
Quest pack,
That's
right? And then
exactly
it'll be
like the
like,
old notes.
right, it would be like,
No,
oh, you
no.
just used the wizards again?
In
Like
that
that seems
way,
kind of strange.
no. In that way, I agree with you. If it were me, I would release both of them. But the pack that nobody saw, I would just use new sculpts. But I would still keep the concept of okay, here's 4 more wizards. Who cares? Here's 20 more. Here's a
Maybe,
thousand more wizards. What's wrong with
yeah,
that?
maybe, maybe
You
that's
may not
enough.
buy them all. And yeah, if you're that fan that's like, well, I've got to buy everything, and I'm mad that it's not different enough for me. It's like, I can kind of brush that off because you're like this percentage. I mean, you're paying customers, but you're this percentage. Everybody else is like, oh, cool. I can either buy the wizards from this pack or the wizards from this pack. Which one do I want? I'll get that one. I'll get this one. Yeah, I don't see the big deal
Yeah, but
because
we'll see.
how many
You know,
archetypes of characters are there? Like, I wouldn't mind
yeah,
getting a box full of orcs that are totally different than the orcs I already have. Well, heck, they're already doing that. Spirit Queen's Torment, Prophecy of Telor. I
yeah.
already have orcs. Why do I want this? I don't
I mean, I think the thing though is that I think there's a desire to see
New things.
stuff that not just new in terms of the physical sculpt, but also new in terms of mechanics, right? Like people got really excited by the Spectre because it was like, oh, it's ethereal. What does that mean?
Pass through walls.
You know, pass
Yeah.
through walls. Like,
We have heroes doing
you know,
that, but not many monsters that do that.
right? Elven Archer, right? In Mage in the Mirror, it was like, oh, now there's a monster with a actual dangerous ranged attack that you can't just sit back and take pot shots with a crossbow all day.
Right. Right. Although you
And
can use twist wood and get rid of his crossbow, but now that
for
spell is
sure,
gone. Yeah.
right. But that's the idea is that I think people they like new sculpts, they like new miniatures, or a lot of people like more of the same miniatures even.
Yeah. This
But I
is
think
not
people all get more excited when they get new miniatures and new mechanics.
sure. Well, and
And it's like that's
it
one of the
inspires
things I
you.
wondered.
It
Yeah,
inspires you. Like, okay, this guy has a flail that has no bearing at all. He's the same old orc. But maybe somebody's like, well, maybe this flail works differently than the sword. Maybe these two guys have different stats because of their weapon. It's
for
inspiration.
sure.
It could be.
Yeah.
But in game terms,
Yep.
it's like, no, this is just a generic marker. Like it could be just this. Here's your monster right here. This is whatever I say it is. And you just
Yeah.
use your imagination. But yeah, it's cool to say, oh, okay.
Like we're gonna have spells that conjure physical things onto the board that stay there
Yeah.
until destroyed. That was
Yeah.
the walls from.
Yeah.
You were just holding up the
You don't
little.
need that. You could just put a tile or just say, yeah, that square right there is the wall. Yeah, it's just it's like so many other things in HeroQuest. It's fun to do it that way. So they have both, yeah, the theater of the mind, the imagination, and the spark of the imagination, these little physical objects. Let me get to some of these comments. So I guess we really have filled up the whole time talking about HeroQuest. We could have argued about Star Trek, Star Wars. I guess we had that conversation in Discord. So we were arguing like which series we liked the best, which movies were good, which ones were bad, and we had all kinds of opinions. It was great, but I guess we'll have to save that for another show. So let me just read these comments. Hey, Elviler. Yeah, a lot of people have been coming and going. Thank you for joining us here on the RantCast. Very HeroQuest focused RantCast. Bohemia says, I'm curious to see if Ogre Horde is the real name of the release. Well, I think there were some people disputing whether Ogre Horde Quest Pack was a name change or just an abbreviation, a short form. Hispa Zargon pointed out that in I guess in early development or I guess early advertising, it was just called Ogre Horde, the Ogre Horde, or against the Ogre Horde. People were having all kinds of fun speculation. Well, maybe we're not really against the Ogre Horde. Maybe we're working with them. Maybe they're like a neutral. It's like I don't know. Whatever looks good on the box, excuse me, whatever looks best on the box is what they're gonna do. Like, whatever. So
Yeah,
I don't have a
but I mean
problem.
that.
It's gonna evoke for people. Okay, there's a horde and there's ogres. You know, it's gonna be that instead of this. So people that remember this are gonna go, oh, it's evoking this thing. That's what they're gonna see. Other people are just gonna go, oh, there's ogres in it. Just like saying, okay, you're not calling it the Barbarian Quest Pack anymore, but you're still calling it Frozen Horror. Okay. So I'm not going to expect necessarily other quest packs devoted to specific heroes, but the main essence is there. So I wouldn't read too much into a name change like that, whether it's 100% or not. I mean, originally when I called those stores, they said on the list, it says against the Ogre Horde. Like they gave me that name. I didn't ask them, do you have against the Ogre Horde? Well, we've got Ogre Horde. No, they just said against the Ogre Horde 2024. So I think that was the working title. And
Yeah,
if they're
it might
changing,
also just be that
yeah,
the information that's provided early via the distributorship networks, like they're providing stuff before
yeah,
copy has been finalized for
yeah,
these things.
they don't
So it's
have it
like
on the
this
box.
is the working title.
Yeah,
We haven't come up with the title.
they
We,
might
we
change.
haven't decided if it's final or not. So
Yeah, I doubt they're
like
going to change to
these
something completely wild. Yeah,
yeah, so this store is, giving it their own name, right? They're deciding what to call it on their website because they're deciding to
yeah,
go public with very
yeah,
premature pre-orders. Like
but it's like calling this
It's a website.
it's like calling
They'll
this
be able to change
Kellers.
it later.
Yeah, it's just a website. They could call this Kellers, or what if they just called it Witch Lord? Well, no, it's Return of the Witch Lord. Well, it's Witch Lord. You know.
Yep.
Oh, it's is it the game system or is it HeroQuest or is it the core set or yeah, it might just be like a convenience thing that's not necessarily 100%.
Um,
I wouldn't read too much into it, but we're just going with what we've got so far.
yeah.
I have no reason to doubt that website. I mean, it's still up. It hasn't dropped off the face of the earth because that was the other thing
Yeah. I mean,
when we had those other
it's
pre-orders for some of those other websites. It's like as soon as everybody noticed it and started talking about it, then they took it down. It's like, oops, we
yeah.
weren't supposed to show everybody, or I don't know if they got
Yeah.
a
I mean, it seems to be a legitimate
yeah,
vendor.
yeah, yeah. People
Um,
have bought from it before. I have no reason to
yeah.
doubt. Doesn't mean they couldn't make a mistake.
Right.
But and just to correct one thing, so Avalon Bill said this, and I'm sure he had to say this, but at the same time, I don't think he's lying. Why would he? Is to say that why were the Spirit Queen's Torment and Prophecy of Teller going to be Hasbro Pulse exclusives for 2 months? Like, why aren't they opening up to all stores until 2024? And I was speculating, well, maybe they're trying to punish stores that released it too early because Amazon was shipping those expansions out like a month
People were getting it before the
early.
release date.
Right. I thought, well, they have that. Don't they have a right? Don't they have some kind of agreement to like, well, I'm going to slap your hand if you release it too early? Like, if you go into GameStop and you're like, well, they're like, this game releases in 1 week. I'm like, no, just give it to me now. Like, that guy's going to get fired if he breaks the rule. But Avalon Bill's like, no, this was not any type of retaliation against our distributors. It's like, okay, okay. So he said it. So I'll take him at his word that that's not the reason why they did it. Why they did it specifically, they haven't admitted. I mean, a lot of people were saying, they're just greedy, or they only want people in the U.S. to be able to get it, or I don't know. That's not really true either because they have the European ones there too. But I guess that's a whole nother topic. Let me get to some more of these comments here. Sorry guys, I keep bouncing back and forth. Gravendale Games says, okay, sounds good. Kurgan says 100%. Storm and Wolf says, yeah, I also think that Avalon Hill guys are nice to actually maliciously troll the community. I
I think
enjoy
they're
it.
too nice.
Too nice. Oh yeah, he did say that. Too nice to actually maliciously troll. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, the key is maliciously. They do
Right.
mess around. They drop clues. I mean, I think In Carmine said it one time is that they're lurking in the background. I mean, before they had their own Discord, you don't see them as much, but they're still around. They'll just let a conversation go and like we're throwing stuff out, and it's only if we say something that's absolutely 100% wrong that they'll step in and go, no, I think we would rather do it this way, or no, actually Games Workshop was not trying to sue us to stop HeroQuest from coming out. They actually wanted it to come out. He'll like correct it in that sense, but then most of the time it's just they'll just let it go, or they'll drop little hints. But yeah, they're not trying to lie to fool us. So I think what Uncarming has done in a few cases is an expansion is about to get announced or released or something. Like some big reveal is about to happen, and he'll get us thinking about something that's coming out like 2 years from now. And then it comes out. So it's like he didn't lie, but he also misdirected us a little bit, like a magician saying, hey, look over there. That's something real. I'm pointing to this red scarf in my hand, but you missed the rabbit that was in the hat, like that you were talking about 2 seconds ago. So he does that. And that's fine. Like, I don't think that's bad. I think that's fun. And most customers don't see that. They just, oh, here's the product. But we're the ones hanging on his every word and trying to figure out, the riddles and everything. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of a game in and of itself. And we won't get to do this again because this stuff will be out and then it'll just be part of history. It's like,
But
oh
yeah,
yeah, the whole
they
the
don't do
chase
things
journey.
like tease the idea that they might be working on an adaptation of the Ogre Horde when it's just completely not in their
Yeah, it's
plans.
not. It's never gonna happen. Like, yeah, like they would just pretend to do it and they'd make like fake box covers and they do all this stuff and then there's suddenly like a huge demand and like tons of angry customers are like beating down the doors of Hasbro and they're like, you guys better release this. Like you have them all believing this is really happening. And they're like, oh crap, and then like try to make it for real. Like yeah, that's not what's happening at all. All right, more comments. yeah, they troll us with leaks and teasers and tongue in cheek, but there's truth to it, to all of it, and
And it's
it's
always good natured.
yeah, it's good natured. Yeah, they're not trying to like be mean to us. Bohemia says, "I'm sorry, but this name change gave me very strong Dwarf Pack vibes." Is he talking about
Interesting.
Ogre Horde?
Yeah, I don't.
Ogres and dwarves? I
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't.
see it, but eh,
I mean, one thing that might be worth segueing into just briefly, right, is some people have wondered, will they take advantage of Ogre Horde to bring the last of the mythic heroes to the general
oh
public? And
yeah, that was Ash's video. He's like, put the druid in there because as we
I,
know, druids
yeah.
and
Well, the other
ogres are
thing,
natural
yeah,
enemies. They've been fighting for centuries, as we know in the history of HeroQuest. And you're writing history as you go. No, no, he didn't say that. But any
yeah,
excuse. I mean, what does the Guardian Knight have to do with Rise of the Dread Moon? Nothing.
nothing.
But they put
Yeah,
him in there anyway, and
because
great.
they wanted the fans to
I
have
wanted,
access to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's an easy way to do it. You're gonna buy this anyway, and here's the thing that you wanted. Yeah, just
The
like putting the
one,
mythic characters into
yeah,
the
the one
stuff.
thing that gives me pause, right, is that where have we seen the mythic
Pause.
characters come out has been in the re-releases of the mythic quests. So I
But we're done.
wonder if, well, I wonder if they're still hoping to
Joe Manganiello.
work out a deal to get a retail release of Perpetual Darkness, in which
Yeah,
case they might bundle the druid in there because then they would complete that symmetry of three quest packs, three heroes.
yeah,
It's a thought. I mean, I think probably until the contents of Ogre Horde are spoiled, there's not going to be any way to know unless
yeah,
for some reason they give us a firm answer, and I don't know why they would
yeah.
do that.
I mean, I could see many ways. I think the Druid will get released. The question is just how and
I
when.
think it absolutely will at some point. Yeah,
Because
I
if
would
we
be.
if we got the Bard that everybody made fun of, I'm sure we're gonna get the Druid that people made fun of not quite as hard. Like that
I
was the
love
one where they're
Bard.
like, that's a silly design. So they revised the Druid and then they revised it again. So you can see how it changed from the original version
Right.
where she's like in like yoga pants to
Yep.
the version where she's like got the kind of like islander like leaves and like fur and bones and all that stuff. Yeah, will it be the same sculpt? Probably. Will there be a bear and it'll just be like a polar war bear that's red? Or will it be totally
I,
different?
I
Yeah.
hope not.
It may or
I
may
hope
not.
that there's
Just
something better than
but
that,
see, we're
but
talking about that just because they did that with
the
the
gargoyle.
gargoyle,
Yeah.
the mythic gargoyle. I mean, they're spitballing. So it
Yeah.
they might give us
Thankfully,
a hero collection with new sculpts. Maybe we'll get like a male version and some redesigned cards, or maybe we'll get a bear form. I mean, could be.
we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I
But
think a
yeah, do
lot
you want to
depends
keep?
on. Yeah, let's keep
You,
going. Yeah, keep me on track here. Uh, okay, so let's
Joe
see.
had some stuff to
Forecast.
say.
Yeah, Joe Kosher. Thank you. Yeah, you guys have been waiting for a while. Sorry about that. Keller's gave us more green skins, so like goblins, orcs, Fimmers, or abominations, and Witchlord gave us more undead. Yep. So I would be okay if we got wizard minis in both Wizards and Morcar and the unreleased Wizards pack. Yeah, because this is not Lord of the Rings where there's only two,
Only
three,
five
four,
wizards.
five. Yeah, five wizards. I had to count them. Yeah, five wizards, not counting like video games and stuff. So yeah, you could have lots of magic users out there,
I think.
and
I mean, I guess the thing that I see there though is, do you want them to release a quest pack that you're okay with, or do you want them to release a quest pack that you're super excited about?
yeah.
Because I
Well,
think that's what we've seen with Spirit Queen and Prophecy of Telor. Is some people, especially, I mean, people
been
who
dressing
never
up.
had the opportunity to have it in the first place
See,
are super excited for it. But
just
a
like
lot of the people who already have it are like, I'll probably buy it, but
I
it
won't be
doesn't
happy
really,
about it.
but I'm not like super, I'm not
See,
jumping for joy over it.
yeah,
Like,
see, I I think the bottom line is you have to have good quality products that are affordable for you to make and you're going to profit from, and you have to market the stuff so that people know it exists and want to buy it. You
Hmm.
can't worry about the super fans who were like, "Oh, I've already bought this twice, and you made another special edition, and I got to buy that one. I'm so mad that I have to buy it, and I can't stop myself from buying it."
Well,
Like
the difference here would
like those people
be that
off.
this would be two retail releases, right? We're talking about a hypothetical where they release a Wizards of Zargon and then they release a Wizard Quest pack,
Oh, to make
and
them different
they
from each other so that they don't feel like, oh,
right where
double
it's
dipping. Yeah,
like
because
yeah, the fans might look at it and be like,
I get what
okay,
you're
they're
saying.
just going back to the Wizard well again.
I get
Okay,
what you're
that's cool,
saying.
I guess.
Because
Whereas
otherwise,
if they do something
no, no.
completely
This is
new,
this
yeah,
is
sorry,
something
go
new.
ahead.
I hadn't thought of this. You sparked this in my head. So they give you the box and they're like, here. And oh, you want these mercenary guys too. Well, here. You've got a big pile of those. Inside the box, there's two quest books. Wizard quest book, so there's 10 adventures and stats for these guys. And then there's Wizards of Morcar, 10 more quests, different rules. I mean, they could do that. They could combine them.
That
Then
would be
there's
really neat,
then
actually.
there's no rebuying. But would they really do that? I think they probably would just like
Well,
we'll
because
get
the
a wizard
Wizard,
we'll get a wizard quest pack that's only loosely inspired by the old one
yeah,
that
the
nobody
Wizard
actually
Quest
had.
pack, right? Like the one we know about was supposed to have a whole bunch of other new models too, right? Like there was supposed to be Minotaurs and
Giant
I forget
spiders.
what else.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not going to
right.
spoil it
So
all, but because there are some fans that are doing some
yeah,
things that we kind of may or may not know about. But the yeah, the point is there's no expectation, whereas there is expectation with something like this. So you have to kind of respect this even as you're like tweaking it and revising it. And I think the
hmm
original like framework, like Encarmi was pretty clear about that, like that framework.
they
Because I
want it to be
remember
recognizable.
like well, yeah, it needs to be somewhat recognizable. But um so Amalgamash did this and I did the same thing in my video. Whereas when Rise of the Dread Moon was not as well known, we were thinking, oh, this will be the Knight quest pack. There'll be 3 solo quests with the Knight. He'll have special artifacts and potions just for the Knight, that'll raise his body points and his mind. Like we were trying to like put it in that framework of those themed hero packs. Turned out to be completely wrong. Both of us were completely wrong on that. But we had no reason to assume that that was otherwise. It was like all the signs were there, but they're not holding themselves to that same standard. So there may never be a pack that's like the old wizard pack. I mean, who says those solo quests are even
If,
fun? Like
if
we
yeah,
would have
if
to
I
go
had to
back to the drawing
guess,
board.
the feedback on the solo quests was probably not great
Yeah, they need
because
to
they're
be
too
re
hard.
yeah.
Like the quest books are straight up lies, right? Where it's like this is a good way to gear up a fresh hero. It's like no, this is
You've
a good
never
way
played
for a
this.
fresh hero to die.
Yeah, and a brand new player to get really frustrated and not want to play the game. Because you're
Right.
playing by
So it's like
yourself, you're not even getting backed up by the other heroes. Like, oh man, my wizard's getting killed. No, 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 we'll help you out. Don't worry, the elf is going to come over and heal you, and he's going to give you another dagger, so you're going to be okay. Yeah, but you're just by yourself. Oh, you got trashed. Like I've played with family members, like people that are maybe newer to the games. They're like, oh, I don't know, this isn't much fun. And other people like, oh, that was really challenging, but it's like, man, I died again. Yeah,
hmm
I was really expecting them to have scalable difficulty. Like we've never seen that yet
hmm
in HeroQuest, where it's like, oh, if you've played quests before, this. If you haven't, then this. Or whatever. If you're an experienced player, get this. They could do something like that, but maybe they're thinking, oh, that's too complicated. I mean, you've got room on these pages to like put more, but
yeah.
maybe it's too
Well,
much. Just
I'm
like putting
expecting.
two different
Yeah,
rule sets in the same book.
I'm really expecting that there are going to be artifacts at minimum, and
Mhm.
that's going to probably mean more notes to decide.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got to put those artifacts somewhere.
Well, and as Covert Nerd said, why couldn't they just sell us a deck of cards and say, "Oh, here's a bunch of monsters for you to use. Oh, you want some extra spells? Oh, here's some spells you can use in your quest. Oh, you want
Yeah.
some artifacts? And they could give that all to us. But then it's like, okay, you can't play it by itself. It's just a deck of cards. But you can't play this by itself either. You need the game system.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have to just decide: is this something that people are going to want? Are people going to actually buy this? Is this going to make them money? And if it is, then they just have to get, whoever to sign off on it, and then it's going to happen.
I think there's also, are they going to buy this and maintain their enthusiasm for whatever we do next? Because I think it's certainly possible to choose a strategy where you sort of take advantage of the existing good faith, where
Mhm.
it's like the customers are like, well, everything up till now has been good, so I'm going to keep buying.
Yeah,
And then you buy something and you go, what the
stinger.
hell is this? Why did they release this?
We're
This is
so
useless.
sorry. They're going to make up for it in the next one. Yeah. Because not everybody is going to buy every pack. So you kind of have to nail people after the initial buy on each one. I mean, when we were kids, it was like we've got the first three, and then the rest is your imagination. You're going to have to figure it out yourself.
Mhm. Yep.
And by the
Um,
time we maybe saved up enough money to actually get the frozen horror, it's like it's no longer available. Like a lot of people were in that position. I don't think I ever actually tried to order it. I think by the time we finished playing all the other adventures, like I'd had my fill of HeroQuest, and I was gonna go play Sega Genesis instead, like hang out with my friends at the roller rink, whatever I was doing at the time. But some people are gonna be like, yeah, we've knocked these out. Where's the next one? I'm not going to write my own quest. Give me more contents that I can, consume. Like, okay, well, yeah, they have to know who their audience is and keep filling that out. Yeah, I was going to get to more of Joe's comments. We also got Elf Mercs in both Mage of the Mirror and Rise of the Dread Moon. Well,
we got evil elf monsters.
we
I
got
wouldn't
evil
say
elf
we got
monsters,
mercs.
yeah, but the fact that they gave us extra ones, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, we could hire some of these, couldn't we?" Maybe there's
Yeah,
some
yeah.
elves that are friendly to your side. And who knows? We're
And there
playing a
were.
campaign that might still happen. Maybe. No
Yeah.
spoilers. Yeah. And the thing about it is, going back to like kind of an earlier, let's say, criticism or challenge that you were talking about, is I have no problem with an expansion being unique and saying these rules are only for this expansion, nowhere else. As opposed to saying, well, these are now universal rules that are going to apply to everything. Like, I think they've done a fairly good job so far of balancing that. Because if you look at the Frozen Horror, they're saying, well, you can use those mercenaries in the Elf Quest pack if you want to, but you
Hmm.
don't get to use them in the game system. You don't get to use them in Keller's Keep. Now they took the elf
I mean,
spells in the
technically,
app and
there's
said,
nothing
well, yeah,
stopping you,
but
but
they gave you an app. Like, why didn't they
yeah.
allow you just to use them in all of them? They're basically saying, here's our intention. But yeah, they can't. They're not going to send Pinkertons to you and say, no, you can't use that ogre throne in Keller's Keep. That's illegal. It's like, no, I'll put it on top of the dwarf's head the whole time, and that's because that's what I want. It's like, can't stop you. But yeah, they kind of gave us like guidelines. So we always asked, well, where are the rules for using the warlock? There's no rules for using the warlock. How do we use him? Well, the app just, you swap out one of the other heroes and put the warlock there. Like, okay, you know, it's like pretty simple. Like, that's one way to do it. So with Rise of the Dread Moon, they gave us those new mercenaries, but they didn't say we could take those mercenaries and use them in other quests and vice versa. You could on your own, but
I think the way that
in other
Mage of
words,
the Mirror was written is it basically said if you have mercs from somewhere else, you can use them here.
oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, okay, that does make sense. So you could use like the Arbalist and the whatever, the Glaive.
And they very carefully gave them the same stats and the same hiring costs as the
Yeah.
mercs we already had. So it's like
Yeah, the difference is
functionally they're the same.
you don't have the reputation tokens, you don't have the disguises. So that stuff goes out the window. So effectively it's just another miniature with the same
Yep.
stat.
But some players just like to have the variety.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to hire an arbalist, not a
But
crossbowman.
but some
You
people
can
worry.
hire a crossbowman.
Some
Like
people, yeah, some people legitimately worry. They're like, "Oh man, what if I use the elf spells in the trial? Like that's going to throw everything off. Or what if I'm using,
I've
the
been doing that. I've been doing that
yeah."
for like 15 years.
But the point is, yeah, okay, it works great. But those early quests had no, like, they're not broken because they didn't account for expansions that were going to come out years later.
No.
So yeah, you don't have to worry. Well, what if someone uses a command spell on Sir Ragnar? Then what happens? It's like it doesn't have it there, and if you want to put it there, you figure it out. Like there's no official answer. You figure it out because there's so many people out there. This is something that I kind of it has some tension for me. I guess this whole time is that even though HeroQuest is the sandbox game that you make it up yourself, and yet they sell us more stuff, even though you could have made it up yourself. There's still so many people online that are so adamant about finding out the official answer to everything. They got to know the exact like
Yep.
which quest happens before which other quest, which spells are you allowed to use, what's the exact, way to do this particular weapon. And from a certain standpoint, I get it. Like I want to know what the designer's intentions were. And why do I want to know that? Because I want to know if it's stupid or if it's good. And if it's stupid, I'm going to ignore it. And if it's good, I'm going to do it. Or maybe I'll do something similar. Like I'm not asking because I feel like I have to do it the way that they intended. Like I'm going to learn the rules of chess, and if I want to play like fairyland chess, I'm going to play fairyland chess. So I kind of get what they're asking, but it almost feels like some people like have like hemmed themselves in. Like I can't make a move as Zargon until I get on Twitter and find out what Avalon Bill said it was. It's like find it in the book. And if you can't find it, they gave you that guideline. Use your imagination, use your experience, figure it out. But it's like people are like, no, 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 I got to look up the answer. Like, let me get my phone out in the middle of the campaign and figure out, okay, now does the crossbow hit the diagonal squares or doesn't it? Oh, it does? Oh, okay. Well, all right, guys, we're going to play it that way now. It's like, no, you make the decision. So I don't know. I wish people felt more free to kind of play the game how they want to. But I guess when you're a kid, like I guess I see two things. Like there's kids that are just like, "Oh, I'm just going to play with this toy and, it's just limitless. This could be anything. This could be an airplane, this could be a building. Well, it looks like a wizard. Why is it a wizard? Well, it can be whatever you want." But then there's other kids that are like, "No, no, I want to know exactly like who made this, what was it for, what are the rules? Explain them to me. I'm going to memorize them and I'm going to do it, in the proper order." It's like both those things are like in tension with one another in different ages. And so I guess it's true for
Yep.
adults too. Like people, they want to know like the instructions. What was this intended for? But then they also want to just go off on their own.
Yeah, I mean, Verge just had a good point, I think, in the chat there, right? It's, a lot of this stuff comes because someone's running a game, their player asks a question like, hey, can I do this? Does this work?
I haven't
And the
given that a
person is
thought.
like, and the Zargon is like, I'm not sure. I'm going to ask the designers, like, hey,
Yeah,
is this supposed to work?
we can't all
And
be
like you
George
say,
Lucas. Like,
and then
oh, Naboo. Like, okay,
you get an answer back, and then you can make an informed decision. Do I think this is good for the way my table plays or not?
yeah. It's like getting a second opinion. But I guess the thing that's bad form is just never being able to make the call as Zargon. Like you're the leader of the game. You should
Yeah,
make a decision. Because yes, it's true. We just got done saying we don't expect you to do hours and hours and days of prep before the quest begins. That you've mapped out every possible, path and question that could be answered. But yeah, just make a decision and, maybe a couple weeks later you come back and say, "Well, I know we were rolling to jump over the pit traps, but what if instead we like drew a random tile or what if we just, got rid of somebody made a suggestion, let's try playing it this way now." Players like, "Okay, let's try it this other way." Play it. That was not as fun as the other way. Let's go back to yeah, it's
yeah,
do that stuff in between quests is kind of what I'm thinking. Rather than take up
yeah.
game time like arguing over rules or trying to like look stuff up. But yeah, you're
I
playing
wonder
with
if
kids
people.
like, this doesn't make any sense. Let's go to the
I
internet.
wonder if
Yeah, go.
I sort of wonder if people have also just gotten used to not playing in settings that are kind of as sandboxy as HeroQuest was
Could be.
kind of intentionally made. Like, like people will be like, "Hey, can I switch weapons?" And it's like, well, you know what? The rules are completely silent on that.
Yeah, you can.
There is no guidelines given whatsoever on,
Yeah.
is there a limit on how much gear my character can carry? Like,
The answer
is
is
there any
no.
limit on how much, how many weapons I can bring into a quest? And it's like, no, the
You
rules just
gotta
don't say anything at all.
you gotta write it on your character sheet. But guess what? I can write really small. I can abbreviate. I can write on the back.
Well, but what I mean is, like, the game is
Yeah.
really saying we're intentionally not giving you guidance on
Oh
this.
yeah.
We want you to make a call for we don't want you asking the designers what the correct rule is. Like, we want you to decide for yourself what the right
Yeah.
answer is.
At the same
And it's
time, the
like,
designers have an idea of what they think, but it's like that discussion I had with Encarmine, the spiritual journey. It's like he thinks the spiritual world of HeroQuest ought to be like this, but he's not going to impose that viewpoint on the game
right, he's not going to
necessarily.
write it. He's not going to write it into the rules.
This is how it is, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were kids, what we did was like we actually mimed it out. We're like, okay, I'm going to put this sword on my left hip. I'm going to put the other sword on my right hip. And the shield is hanging on my back. And I've got the helmet on my head. And the crossbow is hanging from the front of my belt. You know, it's like you're it's like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. Well, actually, so we've got some guys that are hanging back that are carrying our food and water and stuff. Those guys are hanging onto our extra weapons. So when it's time for me to get my other weapon out, those guys run up and they hand me the weapon that I need, and I give them the other one, and then they run back to safety. Like,
Hmm.
okay, it works. Yeah, my magic bag
Yeah.
of holding carries all the stuff I need.
I mean, and it's not completely true that these things are always left blank forever. We did get, they eventually did write in rules about, like, hey, when can you swap stuff with your buddies? Like,
Hmm. People wanted that clarification, so they gave it.
yeah, but it wasn't in the original rules, and so that was another one of those kind of. But I think, yeah, maybe it was just that people always would want to
Well,
do it in ways that are
actually,
broken, like
the North
sharing
American,
the same battle axe every turn or something, you know?
not to be so pedantic, but it does say that you can, like, for instance, the North American version says you can drink more than one potion at a time. And
Hmm.
it says you can give one potion to an adjacent hero, but only on your turn. So it's already in
Yeah.
there. But yeah, a lot of us just played like, okay, the two heroes are next to each other. Okay, I'm going to give you half my stuff. You're going to give me half my stuff. We'll trade, trade, trade. Okay, we've completely swapped gear. Okay, now. But yeah, that's not how they intended it. So they said, okay, if you're next to a monster, you can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, it's just on the
You
turn.
know, but
But a
it's
lot of times
also
we
just,
forgot, and it's just like, yeah, it didn't break the game. We just forgot.
yeah.
We were too
But
generous.
yeah, but again, and it's really something that for some of these things that has to come down to what's the dynamic at your particular table, right? Like I said
Yeah,
earlier, I play with a lot of adults who have very competent sort of strategic minds.
and
They're
their
very
pride is on
capable
the
of looking at
line.
a game and being like, this is how I can break it,
Yeah,
right? So I wrote my own rule on weapons. I was like, you get two weapons basically per quest. You have to decide before the quest begins.
lone wolf. Yeah,
And
only
it's
have
like
two
you
slots.
switch, you decide which weapon you have equipped at the beginning of your turn, and you can't switch until your next turn.
Yeah,
And it's sort of like,
I
just
like
because,
the.
again, my problem tends to be that the heroes get too strong, and so it's like, okay, I'm going to make it so you literally just cannot go into a quest as a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah,
Like, you can't be, I've got a battle axe and a longsword and a crossbow and, and some artifact that, it's like, no, no, no. Like, you got to choose a couple of them.
yeah. I don't mind the fact that people are loaded down, but I do try to implement the beginning of your turn rule for the ones that do make a difference if you combine them, like the battle axe and the shield and the
Right.
staff.
Yeah, you don't want I swing my battle axe, then I put my battle axe away before the end of my turn
And quickly switch
and
back to the
put my
shield.
shield on.
Take the
Right.
time to defend, and then when it's time to attack, I immediately switch back again.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, then why is there a restriction? There isn't one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe you don't
Uh,
care. You're like, well, in history, people use battle axes and shields all the time, so I just won't even
Yeah.
do that, and I won't slow you down with the plate mail and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, you can do that too.
I mean,
Okay,
but this is where we talked about compromises, right? Like,
compromises. Yeah,
plate mail,
realism,
right?
fun.
If you were going for realism, plate mail would actually be less encumbering than like full body chainmail. It distributes the weight more evenly,
Well, but
and it doesn't just all fall on your shoulders.
who says it's full body though? Eh,
Well, but you know what I mean, like, right? Like the idea that there's
go
an
by the
idea that game
drawing.
systems have tended to perpetuate that, like, as armor gets more protective, it also gets more encumbering and
Yeah,
more
Just
and
like
heavier, and that's not actually true.
right, just like the bigger and stronger guy has to be weaker at magic. Like, why couldn't you have he
Why couldn't
studied
you
at
have a
magic school
yeah,
and he learned how to use a sword? Like, oh,
right?
why does the
And
wizard have to be a wimp when it comes to combat? Why can't, you know?
you
Yeah,
know,
it's like they
but it's one
created
of
these
those
game
things,
mechanic things for balance, so you're making choices and
right?
trade-offs. Oh,
Right.
okay.
You're trying to say
Disadvantage
there's
is
a
disadvantage.
reason, right? There's
Yeah,
a reason to use chainmail. There's a reason to use plate mail,
yeah. Like I would
and you
have
don't
no
just.
problem. Yeah, I'd have no problem like I've never done this, but having like a solo quest where you've got all the powers of a barbarian and a wizard.
That could be fun.
Yeah, it's like okay, I've used up all my magic. Let me try like splitting a few heads with my axe now. Like okay, sure, why not? But yeah, in a group, you're like, well, okay, we want each person to have advantages and disadvantages, and they're working together. Like whenever a discussion of a hero comes up, people are always like, oh, this guy's too powerful. It's like, or he's too weak. It's like, yeah, but he's not on his own most of the time. He's going to be with other
Yeah,
people.
he's
So
working in a team.
now it's the choice of like, well, when we get the party together, are we going to combine the bard with the druid or the knight with the barbarian and the, whatever. So, all right. I'm never going to get through these comments if I don't get to them. So, sorry,
There was
guys.
there was a there was a
We're,
pretty big backlog that was just, I think, discussing that
yeah, let me go through
with,
these with
some of Hasbro's companies have been.
yeah, maybe less of my own commentary because I think we're kind of getting to the end of our show here. But it's been a lot of
Probably.
fun. It's been a lot of fun. Um, okay, so Joe Kosher, da da da.
A lot of discussion of distribution
Yeah. Okay.
decisions.
Okay. Stormwolf says bought a few. I gotta pin this message.
Oh, he's saying he bought from the place that has the listing,
Oh,
I
the
think.
storm. Yeah, the Firestorm game.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
they're one of
yeah, other
their
people done it.
their
Yeah, I have no. Again, I have no reason to doubt that this isn't 100% true, to the best of their knowledge. I mean, that date is March 31st is subject to change, but I think
I'm sure it's subject to
it's
change. Yeah.
probably pretty close. I mean, the other one was just 2 weeks off. So okay, Elvira says Hasbro does a lot of limited and exclusive stuff. Maybe it's just corporate stuff, and they expect from their smaller companies. Yeah, it seems like Avalon Hills had to work against that their entire time. Like they've had to learn themselves and teach their parent company that HeroQuest is not that. HeroQuest is not an exclusive thing.
Yeah,
Whereas
people don't want limited time
yeah,
collectible
I want a super
things.
expensive. Yeah, there's only 100 copies of Keller's Keep, and it's like super elite, and I'm gonna bid on it and get it. Yeah, that was just to get the whole program started. The backlash from the Guardian Knights, it was just too much. So I think they figured it out, and I'm glad because I would hate to have to like crowdfund like every single one of these and be worried like, oh, I missed out on it. Dang it. Well, I'll try. I'll be sure to pre-order so I get the next expansion because I missed the last one. It's like, oh,
Yep.
my friends, hey, let's play Frozen Horror. I don't have that one. I missed out on it. Oh, dang it. Like, oh, well, you can get it on eBay for double the price. It's like, yeah, so I think they're on the right track. But yeah, they've had to work against this other corporate model that Hasbro's been using for years. Orticon says, as far as Wizards of the Coast goes, WotC, they are dropping distributors such as Random House Books by cutting out the middleman. Hasbro can get more returns on their product. Avalon Hill is under the Hasbro umbrella and thus pushing back release dates on HeroQuest products allows the company to reap early profits.
Yeah, 'cause there's a lot of
Maybe.
people who want to buy
Yeah.
stuff day one.
I mean, I don't care if I buy it from Hasbro Pulse or Amazon. I'm just going to get the one that gets me the fastest at the lowest price. That's all I care
Yep.
about. Now, where it does
Right.
matter is people in certain countries who maybe don't have access to certain stuff. If it stops them from getting it, I think that sucks for them.
Yeah, that's not
I
ideal.
mean, as long as they get it is kind of the other thing. It's like, oh man, I had to wait 2 months to get it. Well, I still got it, as opposed to, oh, your country never
I
gets it.
mean, yeah. There's also right, like I haven't even started my new play group. Right? How many months is it going to even take us to get to whatever the next expansion is? You know?
Yeah. Well, I am in no hurry because I mean I'm doing two expansions at once, and it took us almost a year to do Frozen Horror, and I think maybe
Yeah.
Mirror will take just as long. So I'll be doing quests for the next like 10 years at this rate.
Yeah.
Will I really, or I'll take a break? I mean, maybe I won't play them all, but it's good to know that I can just keep playing it as long as I want to. And when I'm no longer doing this, somebody else will be doing it. 10 other people, 100 people will be doing it. That's fine. It's great.
Yeah, something
Ideally,
I'd actually be curious to know though is like how much of the customer base has actually chewed through all of the content prior to the next release coming out.
yeah, because I hear about people like, oh yeah, we sat down for 1 week and we played through it. It's like, dang, you did it that quick? How the heck did you do it? And sometimes like, oh, they're
I
using
guess they didn't
modified
go.
rules. They
They
didn't do
played
anything
for a
else.
week straight and they didn't go to work.
Yeah, they didn't do anything else. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I work a job. I've got other stuff that I try to do in between. I'm not, despite what you see on the streams, I'm not living, breathing, dreaming about HeroQuest every second of every day. Like I do other things. But yeah, maybe I could, or maybe if I was 10 years old again and had, the summer off and just like, let's just knock this out. Let's do it. Let's get the next one. I've run out of adventures. Yeah, I'm not going to run out of adventures anytime soon. Well, plus I want to experience it with other people too. It's like some of these adventures I'm not that excited about, but the fact that there's other people that want to play it too, like we'll get together and it'll be something more than if
Yeah.
it were just me tapping away on the app. I mean, it's kind of boring. Okay, Elviler says, oh no, sorry, Wordicon. Wizards is
Yeah.
now going to sell their books on their site in D&D Beyond. Yeah, I have nothing invested in that, but I am kind of following that news as well, and I'm kind of tentative about it because it's like, okay, are they making the right decision for them, or are they doing the right decision for their
They're making
customers?
things harder for their customers.
And that sucks. And so
Yeah.
they get
They're,
the
they're
they get the finger for that one.
yeah, they're cutting
Yeah.
some of the legs out from under
See, it's
people who like to, patronize.
yeah, yeah, because maybe
They're
I
trying to drive their customers or
yeah,
herd them into their ecosystem because they
right.
think they can monetize them
The
better that
the
way.
small shop owners, like, are they gonna be yeah penalized for this new system, and they're gonna go out of business, and you lose that cultural experience that you were having. Yeah, that kind of sucks. Okay. Elvira says they may be at risk of oversaturating the market with HeroQuest. It's possible. I was looking at that game that Strange Bus mentioned, Imperial Assault. It was like there was 14 expansions in 5 years. I was like, dang, that's a lot. But then I was thinking, that's like almost 3 expansions a year. That's pretty similar to what HeroQuest is doing. So Alviler continues, they've got a lot of releases in a short amount of time. So if they're planning on releasing Crypt, or Perpetual Darkness, it may not happen for a while. Well, yeah, they would give themselves more time to figure out whatever they need to figure out. If that's what it is, if it isn't just a case of no, it's just not going to happen. We shook on it and that's it. Wordicon says so. Hasbro Pulse may be the only way to get HeroQuest in the future. I think they're testing the waters on profit margins. I don't think that's true. I think they'll always be, but you're talking about new products, possibly, because yeah, people will sell stuff on eBay and Amazon forever until those companies go under. But yeah, if they release a new product and say, okay, you can only buy this on our website until somebody else puts it in the aftermarket, that would kind of suck because then they could fix the prices a lot easier. I hope that doesn't happen. He also says, meaning Amazon may get pushed back on future releases so that Hasbro can get a direct cut first. It's quite possible. I mean, I might just wait to buy it until I can get it somewhere else. I haven't decided yet, me personally. Storm and Wolf says Amazon is the main sales channel for Hasbro regarding D&D, Magic the Gathering board games. Yeah, they have their own special section. And what they do cut out is publishers between them and the stores and them and the customers. Don't underestimate the cost running logistics from B2C. That is a nightmare and very costly. Well, see, they told us that it doesn't make much difference to them whether you buy it from Amazon or Walmart or direct from Hasbro Pulse. That's what Avalon Hill said. Now, maybe there's somebody else in the company with more authority that disagrees with that, but that's what they
I
said.
mean, it feels like that's hard. Like that can't be true, right? Like they, if I wanted to buy Dread Moon from Hasbro
You're
Pulse,
kind of
they're
far
still
away
selling
there,
it.
Karningul.
I'm sorry, I forgot to reposition my mic.
See,
Um,
now you're probably drowning me out. See, in the recording,
yeah,
like it always is like I'm like talking like, and it's like ah.
yeah.
Anyway,
Sorry, yeah,
right,
sorry.
yeah.
I had rolled my mic up, so
No,
it was up above my head. It
once
couldn't hear me because
once
it's
we get
supposed to
through
be in
these
front of my
comments,
face.
I'm gonna wrap up. So go ahead, say
Yeah,
what you.
yeah. I was saying that The thing is, though, that feels like it's impossible for that to be true, right? Because
They're going to make more money if
Dread,
they sell it
Dread
directly.
Moon is $45 on Hasbro Pulse plus shipping.
Yeah.
Amazon, I bought it on sale on Amazon for like 38 bucks or something with free
Yeah.
shipping via Prime. So like
Yeah.
Amazon isn't making a loss on that. So
No.
whatever the wholesale acquisition cost of the product was,
Well, don't they
like
buy a bunch?
Amazon is selling it for less money than Hasbro is. So how can their cut be the same?
I don't know.
It's just the numbers don't add up when they say it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Like maybe it doesn't make a
Well,
difference to
they
the
lower the
Avalon
price.
Hill
Do they lower the price because
employees, but
they lower the price because it's not selling, so they're either going to have to throw this in the trash or send it back, or they lower the price and they get a sale. Like, is that how it works?
I don't know.
But I mean, why would so I yeah, Hasbro Pulse never lowers the prices. They only increase them. But all
Right.
these other
It never goes
stores
on sale.
lower them. Yeah.
And they charge for shipping.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how it all works. I really don't.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like it's
But
physically possible for
but you
that to be
had
true.
but I
But
do want to say this. You did have fans, I think it was in our Discord, possibly in the Avalon Hill Discord as well, who were saying, "Oh, I vow to buy it direct from Hasbro Pulse. I will not buy from Amazon or Walmart because I want to make sure they get every bit of that price because I want to support Avalon Hill." And their response was, "Doesn't matter to us. You don't have to do that."
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the context that it was in. Is people were worried
Right,
that somehow if they bought it from like Target, that like it was not going to count and Avalon Hill was not going to get the money and HeroQuest was in danger. And it's like they're like, nah. So if there is a difference, it must be negligible.
I think it's not a difference that I would imagine makes a difference from the standpoint of like, is the product line viable? I guess what I mean though is from a
Well,
standpoint of is Hasbro pushing them to say we need to adopt policies that capture more of the profit directly
yeah.
for ourselves. That's where
So
I'm like that's where I'm kind of like no, I think that is where it does make a difference. Like any sale is a good sale, but
yeah.
a sale direct through Hasbro Pulse just feels like it has to make them more money than a sale through Amazon.
But we don't know the numbers. I mean, there is
No,
some information like how many do they sell on Amazon versus Hasbro Pulse? Maybe
who
the Hasbro,
knows?
maybe the direct sales on Hasbro Pulse are very small. What if
I don't
that's
know.
the case?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe they don't have a lot on hand. Like if they had to, it would just sell out immediately. Like some things are sold out right now on Hasbro Pulse
Right.
that you can find other places. Why is that true?
Yep.
It just is. So
Right.
yeah, and I doubt that the Magic Hand stream. Thanks, Elberg. Yeah, um, I don't. I think they choose their words very carefully. I mean, I'm sure they probably had a meeting if somebody said the wrong thing. But as someone who works for a big company, I know that like if I say something that's completely against company policy, that looks bad on me. And if my bosses see me doing that, I'm getting in trouble. So I think they would only say something if they knew that it was accurate and they wanted us to get the right thing, or they would correct it and say, no, no, no. I know I said that, but I want you to buy only from Hasbro Pulse. So they haven't said that. But what they did was made the decision for us and said Hasbro Pulse for 2 months, and then after that, other stores get it. It's like okay. I don't think that was a decision they made. I think that was imposed upon them. So
Yeah,
Elberg
could be.
says, yeah, because I mean, they'll defend the company they work for because they're not going to talk against it. But at the same time, it's like you can tell sometimes it's like there's something that they wanted to do, but they couldn't. They weren't allowed. Elberg says the optimist in me would. Why can't I see that? Oh, here we go.
Wonders.
Wonders if it's yeah, it's like there's icons in the way. Wonder if there's a limited amount they could get to release for the first wave of shipment. It's a tight schedule right before Christmas, and the next wave will be out as normal to retailers. Magic Hand stream, yeah. Um, some people pay a lot of money to see that. It's like, listen, I don't want to be any part of that. Elberg says a lot of rule intention questions, though, are to answer the issues that come live at the table. My friends and I are rules lawyers, so having arbitration to know the intended results is often a good value for players seeking those answers. See, even Stephen Baker agrees with my interpretation. You gonna argue with that? And it's like, yeah, I get that, but I try to just it's like, listen, I'm making the call. When you're Zargon, you do it the way you want to. If there weren't disagreements at the table, everyone would play just fine. Agreed. Elviler says Zargon gets overruled with my family at the table all the time. It's a necessary evil for us. They're already reluctant to play. They don't want them to quit. Oh yeah, there's that too. You can't kill them too hard. Elberg, forums and Discord and 30 years of disagreements on rulebook has also necessitated the want for clarification after such a long time. Okay, so Elberg is thinking this is not just brand new players confused about the rules. This is people who want to settle those old scores. Yeah, and it'll never end though. I mean, I told Avalon Bill to his face, his virtual face, that he was wrong about courage, and I stand by it. And he came back. His answer was to say, "Do it the way you want to." Good on him. A lot of patience, that guy. Okay, Elverg
Yep.
says fun is greater than rules for sure. Elviler. Bohemia says Verg never overrules Argon unless you want to go to the pain pit. No, I said that. But you can discuss the home rule and staple it to be consistent. Elviler says playing with adults, Zargon's word is law. 100%. At least with the adults, they won't get tears all over the board and then decide to never play again. Well, I'm going to disagree a little bit because I know adults that are like that. That'll maybe they won't have a hissy fit at the table, but the next time you say, "Hey, let's play some HeroQuest,"
They'll be busy.
yeah. Oh, I just remembered I got a thing. Well, how about Risk? Oh, you know what? I got the thing done. But I gotcha. Elver says, Kurgan, you gonna give that store owner a call? I did. Oh, I forgot to say that. So I called both of those stores. So Viking Hobby in California and Isle of Games or Isle of Gaming. Oh, I've already forgot. In Arizona. I called both of them and they just said, we don't have any new information since last time. We'll put you on the list and give you a call when OGRE Horde becomes available. And I said, what about March 31st? Oh, they haven't told us that. So that doesn't mean the UK page is wrong. That just means they haven't been told that. So no new info. I tried. Good idea. Yeah. Bohemia says, Verg, if tour family don't want to play, invite me. I'll play with you. Verg says, Bohemius, if you end up sacrificing the players' fun and not account for things that aren't fun for your players, you won't continue to have those players. That's true. These game spaces that Zargon rules always applies, but there's also space that needs to be malleable to keep players engaged and wishing to continue to play. Well, there's also the fact, I just want to throw this in, that sometimes the players don't know what's good for them. Like they think, oh yeah, we need more of this, but you know that later in the quest they're going to need this other thing, and so you just go, okay, fine, you can have that thing that you wanted, but now don't you wish you had this other thing? Like, so they may think they know what's best, and yeah, they want it to be easy, but yeah, you just have to like learn your audience. And sometimes, yes, sometimes you do make concessions because you really don't want to lose that one player, so you bend to their will, or you let the little kid, okay, fine, little kid, you can try again, because you're still learning to be a good sport. Yeah, we're human at the end of the day. You still have to kind of feel things out. It's not going to go perfect every time. Bohemia says, yes, that is what I mean. Discuss the rules once to accommodate the need and opinion of everyone. After everyone agree, write the rule and don't change it to avoid future discussions. Yeah, you kind of got to put your foot down as Zargon. Elberg says, I believe you meant Elviler. See, now I'm commenting on the conversation. I don't play with my family brother when we were younger, but not now. I like these conversations. Maybe I don't need to recite this all for the group. Let me just go through.
Yeah, we might be able to skip a
Yeah.
little bit.
Warcon's playing solo with the app. Only 4 quests in. See, if they look at my data for the app, it's going to be weird because I'm mostly just trying to break it. Like I'm trying to do weird stuff just to see how they would handle it, you know? And sometimes I'm like answering questions like, well, you can't search for treasure in the corridor. It's like, yes, you can. They put it in there. They accounted for that finally. They fixed it because there's 2 quests where there's a treasure chest in a corridor because it's a room. It's treated as a room. Um, Elberg says, I think the game rules can be malleable at any stage if the need arises. I agree with that. Not worth tanking the group's fun if something comes up later after rules are established just for the sake of doing so. Not worth the time spent. Don't underestimate the costs of warehousing and picking. Oh, back to the Amazon. Amazon makes very little per product. Yeah, but they have sell so many products. Yep, it's the accumulation. Talking about food discounts. See, I'm not an economist. I don't know this stuff. I do not feel competent to comment on whether this is right or wrong. Amazon. Yeah, we're talking about Amazon. Oh, Wordicon. The X Files theme is playing in his head. The conspiracy. Oh, Verg is asking if I'm going to call Firestorm Games. Yes, yes. Well, they're asleep right now, I think. Or no, they're just getting up. Yeah, I'll call them. I'll call them in the afternoon. How about that? If they've got a phone number, you can call the UK. Thanks, Verg. My daughter's middle name is Fox, after all. Thanks, Wordicon. Okay. Well, guys, it's been a good discussion. I even talked Karningul under the table. I didn't think I could do it, but you hear how quiet he is. Still awake?
Yep, I'm still here.
I mean, usually you and I are just like back and forth, like, rah, 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 rah. It's the RantCast. I'm starting to lose my voice too. So we spent all this time talking about against the Ogre Horde. We don't know any more now than we did at the start. The only thing is, we're getting more of a ballpark date, a little bit more of a confirmation that it's probably going to be the bigger, more expensive box, and the
I mean,
rest is
I would
just
say,
speculation.
yeah. I mean, we don't know anything about the official release really, but I think we did learn something from the commentary over the course of this rantcast about what was different marketplaces awareness and knowledge right back in the day. Right, we kind of got confirmation that these things were just about unknown in the US and not
That's not
universally adopted. Well, no,
well.
like
That's not
in
news.
the early 90s when they were in stores, right? Like nobody in the US was getting their hands on Ogre Horde in 1992.
Yeah, that's not news though. I We've known that for
I
30
mean,
years. The exception, and I'm not saying that to be a jerk, but the exception was you did have people. We all know people like this. They go to the friendly local game shop and they've got an import section. Oh, here's this weird European game you can buy. It's really
right.
expensive. Or dad came home from a business trip and he brought a copy of the game. It's like that was the exception. But you did have people where, like Icarus, like he only remembered the European version. He's not British. He's an American. So, but that's
Mm.
the exception. So yes, nobody, people not knowing about these other regions. Like I didn't know the Japanese version existed until a couple years ago. I was like, wow, where was this? I mean, it was there the whole time. I just didn't know about it. But that just means that if you wanted to release it, you're going to have to like educate everybody about it, and maybe you're not going to have as many people mad if you got something wrong, unless you are releasing it in Japan, and then people are going to be like, well, I do remember that and you're getting it wrong. So, but I think overall, just the idea of them bringing back something from the past has a little bit of mystique to it, even if it's not something we never had. So just like those Europeans are happy to get Frozen Horror, even though they never had it, even if they just found out about it last week, from the internet. Just the idea that it was from that time period, that it's something that they could have had, even though there really wasn't an opportunity where they were. Like they would have had to import it. I think adds to it versus if it's something completely new. But the completely
Hmm.
new packs have a mystique about them too, because it's like, oh, I want to see what something new is coming about. So they both have their own appeal. So I don't think they're in any kind of trouble with giving us the Ogre Horde, and I don't think that's going to diminish any future projects that they're doing. Yes, they have a small crew, but I think they have a pretty good handle on They're giving us new content. They're giving us legacy content. New content, legacy, in whatever order they want. And I think it's going to be fine. And the fact that we have very good reason to believe that there's going to be new content in this that didn't exist before is kind of incorporating both of those together. So yeah, there's going to be something familiar, but there's going to be something added. So there's a little
Yep.
something for everybody. And it's not just going to be, well, I didn't like this pack, so there's nothing in it for me. Or I already own it, so there's no reason to buy it. Or, well, I
I
wanted
mean, my
something new.
my copy of it is a reproduction.
Yeah.
I don't own a legitimate manufacturer's copy
Yeah.
like you do.
Well, it's hard. Go to Board Game Geek. I got this from a guy in the UK, really cool guy, and
Yeah.
I told him, you realize you could make like way more if you sold this on eBay. Like the price you're offering me is absurdly low. He wanted to sell. I was like, oh man, I hope he's not like dying of cancer or something. I mean, he didn't say that, but it was just like I was like, wow. I was like touched. I'm like, but he had this attitude of like, okay, it's to a good home. Like I know you're like a really hardcore fan. I want to sell it to you versus just some random person who may
I
just
mean,
resell it again right after. It's like,
yeah,
so
never underestimate that sentiment. I think
yeah,
there's a certain amount
I
of
like
that
that.
and why we got the house that we got.
That's nice.
You know?
That's nice.
Right? It was like they didn't want to just sell it to a flipper. They wanted to sell it to somebody
Yeah.
that was going to
A
care for the house
family
like they cared
that is
for it.
gonna love it. Like it's gonna be loved
Yeah.
just like it was. Yeah, it's a home. That's great. And I did print this out myself. I have like a printed version from Yield In, but
Hmm.
I was like, wow, I actually get a chance to own it. So, but eventually everybody's gonna get to, and that's great. That's
Yeah.
spread the love around.
But I mean, I'm just noting, right? Like this
Mhm.
is it's there's different shades of I already have it, right? Like
Yeah,
I
I
have
agree with
it,
that.
but it's
Yeah,
reproduction minis and home printed tiles
yeah.
and
It's almost fun, more fun to do that. I mean, I think I spend so if I had bought these off of eBay, I would have spent the most money, and I didn't want to do that. Recreating them, buying like Reaper bones and printing stuff was pretty expensive, but not as expensive as that. But it'll be even cheaper to have waited several years and then bought the remake version, which has different art and everything. But yeah, if you just want to
yeah, and I
play
think
it,
and
it's more
and I
affordable.
think there's also just an allure to having it be like pristine, right? Because
Yeah,
buying a used copy of Ogre Horde that's legit is one thing.
I don't
Buying
mind.
one that's like still sealed in the box with the shrink wrap on it would
Yeah,
be a whole other thing. And it's like now I get to get, all the pieces are in,
yeah,
new from box shape, and I can sleeve the cards as soon as they come out of the box and blah, blah,
yeah,
blah. I can take care of it in a way
yeah.
that I didn't know how to do when
When
I
I
was
was
a kid.
when I was 10, yeah. Well, and the same
Yeah.
by the same token, like I don't mind if this gets beat up. I'm not trying to abuse it, but I don't mind if this gets beat up versus like this. I'm gonna be much more gentle with this.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Even though that's actually easier to to replace.
what this?
Yeah. Or
How?
maybe the video was out of sync.
Oh no no no. So on the right is the Mage of the Mirror one that I just spray painted. On the
Yeah.
left is the original uh,
Right.
against the Ogre Horde. This is harder to get.
Yeah, on the left, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to be more gentle with this than
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
even though I'm not trying to like trash it.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the softer plastic is also a little less prone to breaking.
Yeah. Just,
The hard plastic is the problem with it is that
but it's
if it's
semi-posable.
subjected to a lot of stress, it snaps.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Styrene. And these resin
Right.
3D prints, I mean, they're
Yeah.
still pretty
Yeah, I
brittle.
mean,
They're
you got the twisty arm.
I got some painting.
My reproductions are so old that 3D printing wasn't even a glimmer in anybody's eye yet. Mine were injection molded by someone who reverse engineered the molds out of
See, that's
getting
probably more
somebody
durable.
sent them the
Yeah,
well, but the quality of the plastic isn't that good.
blobby. Yeah, I think I saw
You
those.
know,
I
it's got
almost.
it's kind of it's pockmarked kind of like there's just
Oh yeah.
like it didn't fill out the mold with perfect clarity.
Mhm.
the way that the ones from the manufacturer do.
See, but Avalon
Um,
Hill sees this. They see how desperate people are to get this stuff, and they're
yeah,
like, "Listen,
I mean, this
Hasbro,
was like
allocate
20,
the funds."
this was like 20 years ago,
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. A lot of
so
this stuff, I didn't really get involved until maybe like
yeah,
I think my first post was like 2019 on Yield In, but it's
right.
probably like 2016 that I really started like, okay, I'm gonna collect all these and like print them out, and I'm gonna start painting stuff. Like I was serious. Whereas before that, I was just kind of like, oh, I wonder what people on the internet are doing with HeroQuest. Oh, a lot of stuff. Okay, that's nice. Go back
But
to
yeah,
what I
so
was
with the
doing.
reproduction, the kind of quality variation in the reproductions for the multi-part minis, I had to glue most of them. Like
Yeah,
the like
they don't
peg
fit.
and slot
They
systems
don't fit
don't
as well.
don't have grip.
Well, I'm not gonna
So
take
it's
the
like,
whole thing apart, but yeah.
yeah, but you know what I mean. Like I had to. It was like, okay, the body just falls apart. It doesn't, the two halves don't like snap into place the way they're supposed to. So they're still perfectly functional. And at
Hmm.
some point, originally I planned on painting them, but I never got around to it. But it's like,
I'm painting my resin. I'm painting the resin,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
stripping
But
the paint
the
off
the
the.
resin the resin stuff is much nicer than the stuff that I've got for the new one is much nicer than the
But
stuff from the
but
old one.
well, it's funny because I'm painting the stuff thinking it'll look better on the stream, but now it's more like I'm just painting it for display almost. So I'm painting these guys, and it's like, okay, these will just be like for display. And I have those
Yeah.
3D printed ones that Mercantile gave me that I could use on the stream because you can see the colors like well enough. They look pretty decent. It's like, okay, good enough color prints. Okay, well, thanks everybody on the RantCast here. Sorry we didn't get to Star Wars, Star Trek. Um, I'm just gonna just quickly say my opinion about it. We're not gonna talk for 2 more hours, even though that'd be fun. Um, my opinion of Star Wars, if you didn't know, is that I really like the original trilogy, and I kind of fell out of love with the special editions. So I like the original versions. Return of the Jedi, though, has the most nostalgia for me because it was the first one I remember seeing, even though I actually have memories of the Greedo scene from the first movie. So technically, I did actually see that before. I think it was like a marathon, like a triple bill. We went to dinner, and so I missed Empire Strikes Back when I was 8 or whatever. No, I guess it would have been 6. Yeah. But anyway, I have a lot of love for Return of the Jedi, even though I know it has some flaws, and a lot of people were disappointed at the time. I can appreciate the first two movies a lot more now. With the prequels, I was disappointed by Episode 1, but I've kind of just learned to accept it. Episode 2, I actually liked a lot. Episode 3, I liked a lot as well. Not as much as the original trilogy, but that's my opinion. With Star Wars, a lot of the expanded universe, I liked the comics. I liked a lot of the games. The novels, I haven't read as many as I thought I had. There's actually a lot that I haven't read. But the ones I read at the time, I mean, they were fine. I don't know if they would have made good movies. But with the
Not all of them.
yeah, with the sequels, I did
Some
not
of them.
I didn't like The Force Awakens. I hated The Last Jedi. That kind of like killed it for me. I finally watched Rise of Skywalker and I pretty much agreed with all the criticisms that people made online about it. I thought it was kind of just all over the place. Rogue One I thought was
Because
fun.
it was.
Yeah, I thought Rogue One was fine, but it was mostly fine compared to the other ones. It wasn't like great in and of itself. I felt like it was just
It,
kind of
yeah.
forgettable.
It's a
And
fun watch, but it's not like
Solo,
mandatory viewing.
yeah, Solo was okay. Like it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. But when I read about like the development hell it went through and all this stuff, and there was definitely some annoying parts. I think the people that said the worst character, the character that came out looking the worst was Lando. I agree with that. I think his character was trashed in that movie, and I think it was a farce. Um, it wasn't like a crime against humanity or anything, but yeah, it was just dumb. And the TV shows, I watched all of Kenobi. I agree with a lot of the criticism people have said about those, saying that it went in a lot of silly directions and it didn't have to be made. Andor, I watched 4 episodes and I kind of lost interest. It just it just didn't really grab me. That's my rule. 4 episodes for a show, and if it doesn't grab me, I just stop watching it. Why waste my time? Ahsoka, haven't seen it at all. I laugh at the reviews though people make because it sounds hilarious, but not so bad it's good that I need to watch it. Is my thought. And I barely watched any of Clone Wars, never saw Rebels. Star Trek, I was doing a project where I was trying to like write a work about like the philosophy and mysticism within the series. So I forced myself to watch all of the shows and all of the movies. It took forever, but I absolutely loved the original series because I grew up watching it on reruns. I'm not that old. I really, really enjoyed The Next Generation because that was a show that I watched as it was airing. Although I do have to laugh because in some of those episodes, Picard is a real like pompous, like self-righteous like jerk. He really is. But if you just look at it one episode at a time, it doesn't matter. It's just when you try to like watch a whole season and you're like, man, he didn't learn anything. Like, what is this? So, but it's still a pretty good show, and it had the highest viewership. I thought DS9 was very slow. It felt more like a soap opera drama for like those first few seasons, and then they got into the war, the Dominion War, which was kind of interesting, trying to be a war story and a spy story. And I'm told that it's very similar to Babylon 5, but I haven't seen Babylon 5. So maybe after I watch Babylon 5, which I want to do one of these days, I can compare it. But yeah, Deep Space Nine was kind of like back and forth. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad. Voyager started out with some really interesting premises, which I felt like they got rid of too quickly. They
They just
gave
didn't. Yeah,
they gave
they
up.
didn't follow through.
Yeah, they didn't follow through, and there was definitely like Janeway was a hateable character because she was all over the place. One episode she's making a smart decision, the next one she's
Writing
being an
was
idiot.
so
Sometimes
inconsistent.
she's like really righteous, other times she's like borderline fascistic, and you're like, what the hell? And I guess you could like, I could kind of imagine, you know, a captain stranded out, you know, far away from civilization is just going to make rash choices sometimes. Okay, but yeah, as a show, it just I didn't look forward to it. Like I was, it was a chore to watch. Now the best thing I said the best thing out of Voyager was the Elite Force video games, which I thought were really fun. It's like putting you in the Star Trek world, but that was just inspiration. Enterprise, I actually started out really, really liking it, but as I was watching Voyager at the same time, like I saw more stuff in Voyager that made me feel like they were recycling ideas, and then like it was lessened. And there was a couple really dumb episodes where I felt like they were pushing like a moral message that was like completely wrong. Like in my personal, you know, because usually I don't like I can watch a movie and like maybe they have a message that I disagree with, like personally, but I can still appreciate it as art. Like saying, well, I don't agree with what they're saying, but I can still enjoy the experience. But there were some that just took me so out of it. I'm like, they're telling me this is the right choice, but it's the opposite. It's like this makes no sense. It's stupid. The characters are betraying, you know, the character they previously established. So that kind of like turned me off of the series. And so I was like reading reviews that were just ripping the show, and I kind of was enjoying that, like Schadenfreude about it, I guess. Um, and then they had the war angle. And in the final season of Enterprise, they had, I think it was Manny Koto was the guy. They brought in a new guy who was a super fan who was trying to save the show because the viewership had just plunged into almost nothing. And so he was just doing fan service episode after fan service episode. And they were a lot of fun, but it was too late. They knew the show was being canceled. And so I think it was kind of like a sick joke, kind of a cruel trick to like put this guy in there and task him. Oh, and you failed to save the show. Well, isn't that too bad? And then the season finale sucked. Discovery, I watched like 3 episodes and I just gave up. Like it was boring. The characters were not likable. It didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And even though they're trying to reinvent stuff, it just I don't know. It just didn't grab me. So my 4 episode rule gave up. So I guess I didn't even give it 4. I gave it 3, 3.5. And Picard, I've never seen. From what I've heard, is that it's very iconoclastic as far as Star Trek goes. But then they kind of went against that and then did a whole big fan service finale. So I don't know what to think about that. But
I
I
didn't
think
watch it either, but that
neither
was
did
the
I.
impression I got.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it's just like it just doesn't grab
That
me. It's like
yeah,
I've got
they
to
tried
see
like
this.
the first two seasons tried to, kind of do something different, and
Hmm.
then the last season was like, let's just get all the crew back together and
Have
have
a
them
nice
save the
send
day
off.
again.
Sure,
And it's
yeah.
like these guys are all like 70, you know.
Yeah. This, I mean, I'm all for having like, I don't know. It's they've done this with so many franchises, and just my closing thought is that like if you want to make Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, or you want to make Force Awakens, or you want to make a Picard, that should be like a fan film. That should be something you show at a convention as like a reunion one-off. It's not really canon, it's just for fun, you know, as opposed to like, no, this is going to be like a long-running franchise. Like nothing ends. We're going to shoehorn people in there, and it's like we've got to, you know, get the actor back in, and we got to rewrite his character so he's a grumpy old man, and now he's having more adventures with CGI, and it's like it just doesn't appeal to me. Like put it in a book, put it in a comic, video game, but don't make another movie and try to convince me that it's a true sequel. You know, I don't want to know what Bill and Ted are doing, you know, facing the music or whatever. Like it just doesn't appeal. I mean, I'm glad the actor's getting a paycheck, but that's about it. And then
Yeah, I think there's a certain point where continuing to try and
they lived happily ever after.
explore
They
a
all
story
they all died horribly.
just isn't interesting anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, they just
You know,
run it
you're
into
like,
the ground.
right, you're like, there's not the story you're telling isn't compelling. Like,
Hmm.
you exhausted the creative potential of these characters.
Yep. And so when people ask me, "Are you a Star Wars fan?" I say yes. But then I feel like I have to explain what I mean by that because I don't want them to think that I'm one of these extremist fanboys, whatever you want to say, fangirls, fan persons, who either hate everything and can never be happy, or they love everything and cannot tolerate any criticism. Like I just want to say, well, there's some things called Star Wars that I really like, and other stuff I can't be bothered with, and I don't automatically, you know, check out the next product because that's always the next question. Oh, you're a Star Wars fan? Have you seen the new show? What do you think of it? Oh, I haven't watched it. Well, why not? I thought you said you were a fan, and then I have to explain it. Same thing with Trek.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, I consider myself a fan because there's a lot of it that I really enjoy, but maybe now there's just too much of it that's not of good quality. And so, yeah, in the 80s, I could say, yeah, I love everything they've made. But now I can't say that anymore. I could say, well, I just like a small percentage of what they made. I like their earlier stuff. You know, you always hear people say that. But it's not true. I mean, there's newer stuff that I can appreciate. It's just that I don't automatically, like, I don't feel so loyal that I have to, like, pretend to like it if it doesn't appeal to me. I'm much more, like, detached from it. So last comments here. Thank you guys for listening to the Rantcast with us here. Next time we'll get Strange Bus in here. We'll talk some more Star Wars for real. So yes, there are some lesser known versions of HeroQuest that have some interesting differences. The Brazilian version that uses the North American rules, but it's in Portuguese and it's mostly cardboard. So you have the cardboard figures. Two of the it's the let's see, the sorcerer's table and the tomb that are made of cardboard, and the rest are plastic. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. And there is a Hebrew version that is like the first and second edition uh, European rules combined into one. And it's interesting because with that one, like you're reading from right to left instead of left to right. So they like reversed the pages in the quest book, but they reversed the maps too, is what we're finding out. But that the Hebrew version, it's very early. Like Hispazargon is looking at it, so a lot of it we haven't translated it to see if there's other changes. I don't know the language, so there could be other secrets in there that we don't know about. It's kind of like the Japanese version. A lot of people just assumed, oh, this is just the European version again. It's like no, most of the quests are different, the artifacts are different, the rules are different. Like almost everything about it is different, but it's still Hero Quest. Like it still has enough of it in there that you go, yeah, this feels like it's the same world. It's just a little another possibly new adventure. So I'm always excited to learn more things about, yeah, this stuff, even though that wasn't that wasn't my HeroQuest, but it's part of the world's HeroQuest. Didn't even know about the Dutch version until quite recently and grew up in the Netherlands. And I always forget which one it is, but there's one of them. No, it's the Swedish version, I think, where it's not the Les Edwards painting on the cover. It's just a picture of the board. But the setup that they give is nonsensical. Like there's no quest that looks like that, and it doesn't even make sense. But you could still like we created quests in HeroScribe to like match what the box layout looked at. It's like, oh, you can make up a quest. There's too many doors. And then Bohemia says, Last Jedi break too many fans, me included. Yeah, it broke us. Luckily, what I like the most in Star Wars is the universe, the costumes, the props, the aliens, planets, and design in general. Yeah. And someday I would like to play the Star Wars D6 RPG and just make up the universe, like not feeling beholden to, you know, have like a specific planet in a specific place and a specific history. Just make it up, just like they say to do in Warhammer 40K. Like you just make it up. You can just add to the world, and as long as everybody at the table accepts it, it's cool. Star Wars might be hard because you might have some fans say, well, actually, that's Exegol there. And technically, that alien race wasn't, didn't have that type of ship. And it's like, just shut up. I'm running the campaign. When it's your turn, you can do it. But it's just, that's the fun thing. Because when you're playing at home, you'd be like, oh, I don't have that action figure. No, you just make it up. I know that looks like Superman, but that's actually like, an Aqua Trooper, and he's going to be doing his Aqua Trooper stuff. Just accept it. All right. Closing thought, Karningul, and then we'll call it. He said it all, ladies and gentlemen.
No spell tokens. That's my closing thought.
Okay. And Amalgamash is on your side. I think he said no token.
Yeah.
He said no tokens, period. He's going big. I'm saying.
Well, I don't know about that. I just don't think I think we're gonna get cards and not spell tokens for the spells.
I'd take both, but I hope that something like this is in the box, and I predict that it will be. But we'll see who's right. Yeah. We'll see who's right.
We'll have to see.
A lot of people over the years have said that they should have cards, but Rise of the Dreadmoon changed my mind that it could be possible. Yeah. And RantCast. All right, thanks, Storm and Wolf. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we're done like in minutes here. Played the D6 Star Wars about 3 years ago. Had a blast. I was a former scout trooper turned bounty hunter sniper. Cards plus tokens, says Jacer. That's right. Well, and whatever we don't get, we're gonna make ourselves. So if you don't give us cards, we're gonna print cards. If you don't give us tokens, we're gonna print tokens. So might as well sell us what you think people will want. And I was going to say one more thing, but I can't remember what it was. So it's probably for the best. RantCast. All right. Shout out Karl Casey, White Bat Audio. We'll get his music going again. And we'll see if there's anybody we can raid at this time of night. All right. I'll end the stream here momentarily, and we'll get our raid going.
I mean, find somebody on the West Coast.
West Coast?
It's not that late for them. Yeah, I got a jet. I am way past my bedtime.
Yeah, we did this without a break. I'm sorry about that. Normally, see Strange Bus, he'll keep me to actually taking a break in between because we don't have ads.
Oh, it's no worries.
On the RantCast.
The RantCast. As we discussed.
No token says no to drugs.
Yeah. But yeah, I will catch you later.
All right, have a great night, Karningul.
Have a good one.
RantCast, yeah.